31st, if he's a game and a half out or 2 games out or 3 games out, to throw the towel in. Be pretty fun for him if he could find a way to get to the postseason. And right now the Cardinals are in striking distance, and I'm not sure, how much that's going to change because, the National League is much different than the American League, right? Even when I interviewed John Mozeliak on the award-winning front office show a couple of Sundays ago, I just didn't get the impression that, he was going to sell, and yet I didn't get the impression that they were going to make a big splash like the Giants just did with Devers.
That was Jim Bowden a couple of weeks ago here on BK and Ferrario alongside Alex Ferrario and Grant Francis. I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN.
What just happened there, buddy?
A little bit of a glitch.
What just happened?
Happy Friday to everybody.
Yeah.
Cardinals back in action this evening. They are on the road at Arizona against a bad baseball team, Alex.
No, they're the bad baseball team.
The Arizona Diamondbacks have been bad this year. That being said, boy, do they have a good offense. They have a fantastic offense. They hit the crap out of the baseball. You've got Palante on the mound tonight, Michaelis on the mound on Sunday. Oh, boy.
Don't say Fetty. Don't say Fetty. Don't say Fetty.
No Fetty this weekend. Sonny Gray on the mound tomorrow. So that's a win day for you. Fox, big Fox broadcast should be a lot of fun. The other 2 games could get a little, little dicey. Then you've got Colorado on the road. We've never seen the Cardinals struggle on the road at Colorado. Don't check my math on that. Then you come home, 4 against San Diego, 3 against Miami, leading into the trade deadline. Alex, it's a big 13 days for the Cardinals leading into this year's deadline. Here's my question for you. And 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is off and running at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. How much is this year's deadline going to influence the way that John Mozeliak is remembered for his tenure here in St. Louis? Because I think there's a case to be made. It'll influence it pretty greatly because sometimes the way that you are remembered in this specific setting is how you set up the next guy, right? Did you put the next person in position to succeed? Did you allow for them to have the tools that are necessary to build a championship roster? And then, kind of by backlogging, you're remembered more fondly. There's also a case to be made, man, it don't matter a lick. Nobody's changing their opinion based upon what happens at this year's deadline for how they currently feel about John Mozeliak. Because for many, Mo has been a problem for the Cardinals for close to a decade now. I don't share that sentiment, but many do have that belief. How do you feel on this, Alex? How much should or will this year's deadline influence the way that John Mozeliak is remembered?
I think for Cardinals fans, this trade deadline will influence it 0. I think people have their opinion on John Mozeliak and have had their opinion on John Mozeliak for the last 3 years. Ever since that Mike Schilt scenario happened, that's where people have made their decision on John Mozeliak, and it don't matter what he does at this deadline, that's where they're at. Now, that's the short term. I think long term, there will be a little bit more of an appreciation of what John Mozeliak did in his time with the Cardinals, but this is my thought process with it. Let's say Mo says, look, I'm going to set Heim up for the future. We are going to move assets to go out there and get a prospect that is going to impact this team for the long haul. I don't know who it is, but we are going to find that one. Nobody's giving Mo credit for that 5 years from now if that kid becomes a star. It's going to be, oh, well, Heim developed him. Oh, well, Heim was brought in to fix the minor league system, and that minor league system impacted this player to turn into that. Mo couldn't develop players. That's not on him. If they go on to have success with the current roster that they have next year, and they make the playoffs next year with Donovan and Herrera and Burleson, it's not going to be, well, John Mozeliak did that. No. It's going to be, no. Heim Bloom came in, and Heim Bloom was very impactful on that team taking the shift from what it was with Mo to where it is now.
That's a little unfair, though, right?
Oh, 100% it is. Like, I have my qualms with John Mozeliak, but overall, I do think that there have been other reasons why the team has struggled over the last 5 years than just John Mozeliak. We do the blame pie here on BK and Ferrario. He's only a slice of it. There's a lot more of that pie to go around, but everybody else sees it. You can blame the DeWitts all you want, but to me, there's not much you can do about that. You can blame the manager all you want, but the manager goes back to John Mozeliak, and nobody really wants to blame the players.
Yep.
So they go straight to the man that they can, and that's John Mozeliak.
And I think there is, like you said, some blame to go there. I think they fell behind with their minor league development pipeline. Yep. I think they have been late to the party in changing who they are philosophically. I think they held tight to, hey, what we did in 2011 can continue to work in 2025. And the reality is that doesn't work any longer. I think they're finally starting to realize that, right? But it took, 3 or 4 years longer than it probably should have. For a long time there, I think it really started with the Dexter Fowler signing. Like, that was the moment where maybe we should have realized, like, is this really the right path to go down? Because Fowler was a good player, no doubt about it. But he was symbolic of the direction that the Cardinals were heading in, which is, yeah, we're just going to keep collecting these guys that are pretty good but have some serious flaws. I think everybody outside of St. Louis knew, Fowler's not a center fielder. But the Cardinals said, we need a center fielder. We need a guy that gets on base at a high clip. I think that was the same offseason that Adam Eaton was traded, if I remember correctly. And the Cardinals said, instead of us giving up prospects for Eaton, which was like the top guy in the style of player, the profile player that they needed, instead of us really like reaching for that, we will just go give the money to Dexter Fowler. And then I will also never remember the Luis Robert sweepstakes.
Yep.
Luis Robert was available, and all you had to do was spend a specific amount of money to acquire him. And I believe it was on Bernie Miklas's show where DeWitt came on. I'll never forget hearing this. And Bernie asked about it. He said, it's a good amount of money, but is this something that you think you'd be interested in? And DeWitt basically said, yeah, it's not really for us because we would have to spend the money to acquire him now. And then if he becomes a star, we'll have to spend a boatload of money to keep him. I was like, wait, isn't that the goal?
That's not the Cardinals' way.
The goal is to develop these players to then spend the money to keep them here. That has always been the Cardinals' model. What are we doing? And so they kind of lost their ways. Long-winded way to say, yes, there are real, tangible things to complain about when it comes to John Mozeliak. But I think too often it gets overlooked. He also did some good. The Cardinals have been excellent at developing really solid major league players. Guys like Brendan Donovan and Matt Carpenter and Lars Nootbaar and Victor Scott and Harrison Bader, Mason Wynn, Tommy Edman. Dude, they're really good at developing the connective tissue of a roster. And there's value in that. Instead of having to go to the market to spend $10 to $12 million for these guys, they develop them internally. And if he's able this year at the deadline to either go buy some stuff that helps them get into the playoffs, or sells on Helsley, sells on Maton, sells on Matz, and that helps them get a player or 2 or 3 or 4 that eventually are part of the core when Chaim Bloom wins here. I do think that should influence how he's remembered.
Yep.
I think the fact that they have had this transition year under Mo should help influence the way that he's remembered. The fact that he was a big part in handpicking Chaim Bloom to be his successor and not going and saying, you know what, it's got to be something internal. We have to keep this from within, keep promoting from within, which has been their, no pun intended, MO for a decade under Mo's tenure. I think that should in part influence how he's remembered. I think what happens over the next 5 years should influence how Mo is remembered. I think I'm on an island in that regard, though. I don't think that is the majority opinion.
Well, and this one from the never-ending wipe on our text line that says they brought in Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt as pillars to build around and promised success and never built around them. Fair. I mean, that was been part of my argument that season where both were in the MVP conversation and you didn't add to the pitching staff. But I can also, again, back to that blame pie, I can also go back and look at it and say, yeah, but those guys didn't perform when they needed them to also. When you got to the playoffs, Goldschmidt and Arenado were not the MVPs like they were in the regular season. And that's part of this. Like, as much as I can look at John Mozeliak, and I'm not trying to deflect this and say that Mo has been great for this team. He's had his flaws. But sometimes you also look at the players and say, well, you didn't carry your weight for the team when you needed them to. Tyler O'Neill disappeared in the playoffs for this team. I mean, he essentially peed down his leg when they got to the playoffs the season that he was an MVP-esque type of player. You didn't get the contributions from certain guys. And yeah, you didn't add to the pitching staff. But man, sometimes them's the ropes at the trade deadline where you just can't acquire the guy that you hope to acquire. But they still had a team that was effective, and those guys didn't pan out.
And they did. I think they deserve more credit than they get for... Was that the 23 deadline or 22 deadline? I forget the exact stuff. 22. It was 22 deadline. When they got Jordan Montgomery and Jose Quintana. Dude, that's a really good deadline. Quintana is a very good starting pitcher, and Jordan Montgomery was an excellent pickup by them. And that is like prime John Mozeliak. Not a sexy addition. Doesn't give up a huge prospect for him. Gave up a hurt, breaking down Harrison Bader that they weren't going to keep here long term anyways. Yeah. So it was a really smart move by them, and they, I think, deserve a lot of credit.
And that rotation
for how
was
they did that deadline.
Actually, I mean, the worst pitcher in that rotation that season for you was Dakota Hudson. Yeah. And I mean, if I say worse, he's basically better than what Eric Fetty has been this year.
I do agree, though. Like, they should have acquired more. When they went out and got Paul Goldschmidt, I was criticized at the time. I was doing the show with Kevin Wheeler, and I said, all right, this is a really good move. And that day we celebrated it. And then the next day we came on and got back to our conversations about Bryce Harper. Okay, you have Paul Goldschmidt. Can you continue? Can you keep adding to this? Because you're one piece away. Mike Farron, I believe it was, that offseason or the next one, said the Cardinals continue to go up to that line and refuse to step across it. They like dip their toe in the water and like, it's a little warm. Not going to do that. So they're always seemingly one step short of really being a contender. Mm-hmm. They don't dive in. They just dip their toes in the water with consistency, and that's been very frustrating. So I understand the frustration with John Mozeliak. I don't push back against it any longer. It is what it is. I think sometimes it goes a bit too far, but I will be very curious to see how this year's deadline influences the way that we view him. I do want to get some of your thoughts on the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app today. How much will this year's deadline influence how you will remember the John Mozeliak era? Get your mic drop in right now. The 101 ESPN app. We'll listen to those coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. It is a loaded show today. Cardinals assistant general manager and the director of scouting, Randy Flores, will join us coming up in about 15 minutes. We're going to talk to Geoff Pontes at 12 o'clock. He's the prospect writer for Baseball America. I've been told he's one of the best actual prospect guys going right now. Like, he has his eyes and ears on all of this stuff. He is locked in when it comes to the prospects. So Geoff Pontes will join us at 12 o'clock. Coming up in the 1 o'clock hour, Brad Thompson and Mike McKenna will join the show. And like I said, we'll hear from you throughout the day as well. Ask us anything at 11:45. Mic drops coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. Next, has the runway already concluded for Jordan Walker? There was a quote, Alex, from Derek Gould's piece earlier today in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch that I want to get your reaction to, and we'll talk about what his immediate and long-term future looks like in St. Louis coming up next here on BK and Ferrario.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
With Walker, man, like there's a responsibility, and it's dual responsibility on me and my staff as well as Jordan to make adjustments to the league. He's working hard at it. I have to give him credit because it's not like he's sitting around just kind of moping. When am I going to be in there again? He's getting after it defensively and offensively, but we need to start to see some of this kind of come into play. There are guys that are stepping in and doing a really nice job, so we'll continue to give him opportunity. It's not like the runway doesn't end. Is some of the playing time limited based on other guys' success? Yeah. I mean, it has to come at somebody's expense, and that's just the nature of the big leagues. I feel like we've balanced it well. You're looking at him having somewhere around 200 plate appearances at the halfway mark right now, so he's on pace to still get a meaningful amount of at-bats for us to judge what we have and what we don't have going into the next season.
That was Ollie Marmol on KMOX. It's from a couple of weeks ago when he was talking about Jordan Walker, where he's at with the runway season alongside Alex and Grant on BK. Randy Flores, Cardinals assistant general manager and the director of scouting. He oversees the draft. He's going to join us in 15 minutes here on 101 ESPN. Alex, Jordan Walker in his stint down at AA hit 158 with an OPS of 651. He had a couple of homers, a few doubles over the course of his 10 games, but overall continued to strike out more than you'd like to see. And again, this is at the AA level. His production wasn't good down there. How could you possibly expect it to be a whole hell of a lot better up here? Katie Wu reporting right now, the Cardinals are expected to activate Jordan Walker off of the injured list today. He was reaching his maximum number of days allowed on the rehab assignment, which is about 20 days. Thomas Ajacey is anticipated to be optioned down to Memphis. So that is the news side of this thing. Now for the speculation side of it. This comes from Derek Gould's story in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch earlier today. The entire thing's worth your time, but here's a piece of it. Walker was a prominent part of the Cardinals' runway plan to see if he would be the talent that could take off. Now, at the deadline, teams expect to ask if he will be in play for trade talks or if the Cardinals will deal from perhaps an overlap at other positions, end quote. Alex, has this runway already concluded for Jordan Walker? His age would suggest no. He's still only like 23 years old. But his time in the big leagues would suggest, I mean, at a certain point in time, you might be what you are. He's been up at the big league level now for almost 1,000 plate appearances. And he's a career guy that's been getting worse each year that he's been at the big league level. So how do you view his current situation as it pertains to a runway season for the Cardinals?
I think in any normal situation, I would say, yeah, it's pretty much done for because, like you said, you got 1,000 at-bats. I mean, what else do you need to know? He's been sent down to the minors basically every single season if you're going to consider this one this year an option considering or compared to the rehab stint we thought it was. But I think on this team, I'd say no. Because I believe there are other players on the roster that had a shorter runway than Jordan Walker. I think Gorman falls into that. I think Nootbaar falls into that. And those are the guys that I believe they've gotten answers on a little bit more solid than Jordan Walker. Although we believe that, look, the answers are there. He's just not an everyday big leaguer. He's a splits guy, and you're going to be a platoon player. But when we talked to Brant Brown, and I understand it's a hitting coach perspective, but if that's the hitting coach's mindset, then maybe there is a little bit more patience with him. So I think once you start this season tonight up until that trade deadline, it's going to seem like the runway has stopped a little bit because you're going to see Burleson and Herrera and Nootbaar all in the line of consistency. And frankly, I think you're going to see more of Nolan Gorman than Jordan Walker for how he's been hitting. But when the dust settles on the trade deadline day on July 31st, depending on where the Cardinals are at, if they're out of it and sell pieces off, that's where I think the runway thing picks back up. So I believe by the end of this season, you're going to be talking about Jordan Walker still seeing answers on.
Man, I think for this year, the answer might be, yeah, the runway's over. How do you get him into this lineup? Like, who's he playing over? I'm not playing him over Nootbaar. I'm not playing him over Donovan. I'm not playing him over Gorman. I'm not playing him over Burleson. Hell, if Ivan Herrera can actually play in the outfield, I'm not playing him right now over Ivan Herrera in the outfield. I want to see what that looks like. That, to me, has now taken precedent as a runway opportunity over Jordan Walker in getting this time. Dude, again, to go back to it, if you can't hit AA pitching right now, like, you should be able to go down to AA and dominate if you're Jordan Walker. Mm-hmm. He didn't. He went down and struggled even more than he did at the big league level. That's highly concerning to me. So I don't know if that means that you just completely give up on it and say, hey, anything we can get for him at the deadline, let's just go ahead and move on from this. I'm not there. And to your point, maybe next year you continue to give him this runway and you run it back and you say, all right, well, we'll try this one more time. You're 24 years old. Some guys, it just takes longer. You get a little bit further into your development years and maybe something clicks for you in the offseason. You come back and you become Spencer Torkelson for the Cardinals, right? That's possible. But for the rest of this season, if the goal remains, we're going to try to make it into the playoffs, and they have success over the next 13 games, they decide, okay, we're not a seller. We're going to try to buy or at least continue to improve this roster in one way or another. I don't think you get better by giving Jordan Walker more playing time. I think you make yourself significantly worse, and I don't think that's something that this manager is planning to do personally.
Yeah, that's the part that I do struggle with because I don't believe Ali Marmol wants to see anything else with him. I think Ali views this as, look, man, like right now we're in a winning window for this season that we need to pounce on, and I've just got other guys that are performing better. But I do think the tables turn as soon as that trade deadline ends and you or your front office decides where you're at. That's where I really wonder if Lars Nootbaar becomes hey, we want to play him, but Jordan Walker's available. Let's put him out there a little bit. Do things shift around in terms of playing time? The part that I'm pretty adamant about, like 95% confident in, I don't believe you go into next season saying we got to give him another shot. I think by the end of this season, you're going to have your decision. It's why the runway, I think, picks up in August, depending on where you're at. But by the time spring training starts next year, whether he's on this roster or he's not on this roster, you'll know if he's an everyday outfielder or if he's just a platoon bat.
Yeah, I don't think he's a platoon bat. I mean, he doesn't crush lefties enough. Yeah. He's not, honestly, he's not good against
I guess
lefties.
A better way to say it is a fourth outfielder.
Yeah, and that, to me, I don't know if he has value in that position.
Probably
he's not good
not.
enough defensively. He's fine defensively now. He's improved himself. He deserves a lot of credit, honestly, for how good he has become as an outfielder defensively. But he's not good enough out there to... He's not Michael Ciani, for example, with his defense or his base running. And the bat doesn't play up enough to where like you want him to come up in big situations. He's not a good enough platoon player. In his career, he's actually quite a bit worse against left-handed pitchers than he has been against right-handed pitchers. And that's not a one-off. That's been his entire major league career. I don't think there's value in that. I think if you're bringing him back next year, the idea has to be, we're starting this guy. We're trying it again. We think that there's something that we've unlocked during the offseason, or you cut your bait in the offseason. Yeah. You say, you know what? It's time for us to go in a different direction. And that's where I think it gets really interesting to this piece from Derek Gould, where he says other teams are expecting to ask if Walker is available at the deadline. Is it something you would explore? Would you be open to the idea, like I posted this on Twitter today. I know this is a name that Cardinals fans are going to be interested in just because of his previous ties, but would you be willing to talk about Jordan Walker and Thomas Saggese, for example, going to the Marlins, and in return you get Sandy Alcantara? I don't know if that's enough for the Marlins. I don't know if that's what they're looking for, but just theoretically speaking, I think that's the kind of deal maybe that would be out there for them. Would you be open to exploring Jordan Walker in trade conversations, Alex?
Open to exploring with Jordan Walker, yes. If you're going specifics off of Alcantara, that's the one that it's like, man, I don't know. As great as people think he is, you told me earlier, which you're absolutely correct. Check out his numbers, not just this year, but the last couple of years. Hasn't been great, and he's 29 years old. But yeah, I think I have to be open to exploring options to trade Jordan Walker, because if I believe, meaning the front office, if I believe that I have the answers of who he is and he's not an everyday outfielder for me, and I've got other guys that are everyday outfielders for me, whether it's Burleson, Herrera, Donovan, Nootbaar, I got to cut my ties at some point, because it's the one thing that I've bashed the Cardinals on in the past. You stick with guys too long. You stick with guys hoping that they become something, and they don't. And the Randy Arozarena is what people are going to bring up, the Adolis Garcia. Man, at some point I got to look at a player and say, if you go on to have success elsewhere, it was never going to happen here. See what you can get on the other side of that trade. So yeah, I think at this point I'm open to exploring everything if I'm the Cardinals. It just depends on what the return is.
Yeah, somebody from the 618 said, BK, do you remember when you were talking about the Cardinals giving a long-term extension to Walker and now you're ready to give up on him? First of all, that was T-Bone.
Yeah.
And second of all, I have not said that. I have said that if they bring him back next year, they should continue to give him the opportunity. I would be open to exploring it at the deadline, though, yeah. And in part, that's because they have a logjam once again in the outfield. And you're going to have to make really difficult decisions. I don't know who this is going to include in the offseason. I don't know if that means trading Brendan Donovan, which nobody wants to do, but J.J. Weatherholt is coming. I don't know if that means trading Nolan Gorman, trading Lars Nootbaar, trading Jordan Walker, trading Alec Burleson. These are looking at what Mason Wynn brings back in a deal. I don't know what they're going to do, but they have to filter through some of these options. They have too many guys for too few spots. And when you do that, yes, that means you have to explore every possibility to find out what is there out there. Who could we get in return for our players? What kind of value is there in our guys? And that is something that I not only anticipate the Cardinals should do, I think it's what they will do. Yeah. So, yeah, they should canvass the league this year at the deadline, see what's out there for Jordan Walker. I don't think you're going to get a ton in return right now. His value has never been lower than it is today. I mean, he just went down to AA and stunk it up. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, other teams have that information as well. They're not going to be surprised by it when they go to Baseball Reference and see, oh, boy, man, you really struggled against AA pitching. I think it's something that they at least have to explore. And if Sandy Alcantara is out there and you could bet high on that kind of an upside, I think it's a change of scenery for both guys. You're hoping that for Sandy Alcantara, he comes back and gets healthy. And if you're the Marlins betting on Jordan Walker, you're betting on the upside. And you're saying, hey, their development system stunk the last few years. Maybe we can fix him. So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do. But these are the kinds of conversations we're going to be having as we get closer to the Major League Baseball trade deadline. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Grant Francis, I'm Brandon Kiley. In 15 minutes, we'll get into Ask Us Anything. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything, sports or otherwise. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Randy Flores is the Cardinals' assistant general manager. He is also the director of scouting, basically in charge of the draft. We'll talk to him about what he was able to do with this year's draft and what kind of philosophies they had for this year's draft coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Grant Francis here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals will be back in action tonight following the All-Star break. They're in Arizona to start a 3-game series against the Diamondbacks, a team they swept back in May. It'll be an 8:40 first pitch tonight, and it'll be Andre Palante getting the start for St. Louis. I'm Grant Francis. The Sports Center update's been driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Grant Francis, I'm Brandon Kiley. We are happy to go out to the Collier and Thompson hotline to be joined by the Cardinals assistant GM and the director of scouting. He is Randy Flores joining us here on the show. It's been a big week for him. Cardinals just concluding their draft earlier this week. Flo, I hope you've had some time for rest and relaxation after that. How you doing today?
Oh, yeah. I'm doing good. I am catching up on some sleep. It's been a great week of meetings and then a few days of draft prep, and then had Liam Doyle in for the signing process. And so, it's time to kind of catch back up. It's great.
You mentioned Liam Doyle, number 5 overall pick this year. This was a rarity for the Cardinals. That's a good thing. That means they've had a lot of success over the years. But you're able to get a guy that you normally don't have access to in the draft. What stood out to you in the scouting process about Liam Doyle that ultimately led you guys to selecting him number 5?
Yeah, well, let's just go in the scouting box. The further you get away from the first, 5, 6, 7, 8 picks of the draft, the less boxes that are checked, right? So there's a trade-off on command for stuff, or fastball shape, but maybe not off speed. You trade for handedness. But Liam checked so many boxes, and the scarcity of having the opportunity to pick someone with that type of engine, with that type of fastball profile, complemented with a split finger, with the durability that he had, it's just a really, really rarefied air, and something that we were thrilled fell to us.
You mentioned the fastball, right? And that is something on the outside looking in that really stands out about your draft this year. Not just with Liam, but you also look at some of the other selections later on, the strikeout stuff, the velocity for sure. Was that something you went into this year's draft saying, hey, we need more of this in our system? Was it a conscious decision to do that? Or was it happenstance? How do you view that?
Yeah, so look, we see how expensive it is to go and buy or acquire swing and miss fastballs. Once they're established and once they're known, it's just teams do not want to let go of that. And then players who are on the free agent market know that they have it, and it's very, very expensive to acquire. And so you either have to create it in-house or procure it, through the draft or international. And what we wanted to do was just put a little bit of balance on trying to get the engine, and then see what the trade-off is on reliever risk, or what the trade-off is on command or control, and have that be part of our process and not eliminate someone just because of that risk. On the flip side, though, you do want to keep balance, because we have had examples of players that if we only go all in on velocity, then we wouldn't have acquired them or drafted them. You go all the way back to my first draft, Zach Gallen. In the 3rd round, was not someone who had plus stuff at the time, but he's someone who grew into velocity, expanded his arsenal, and turned into the top of the rotation pitcher he is. Just a couple years ago, we had Gordon Graceffo in the 5th round, who made a velocity jump once in the org. Even recently, Quinn Matthews in the 4th round was someone who didn't have velocity, but acquired velocity on his own, and saw him propel to a top pitching prospect in the game. And so I think that we needed to evolve. I think we captured some of that, but we also want to stay true to the balance that I mentioned.
Randy, just because of what BK mentioned at the top, it's just an area that the Cardinals are not typically in, where you're drafting this high in the draft. I am curious just what those conversations are like leading up to the draft in the room, where you're picking at the top, where you got a lot more of a decision, whereas you're going more into the weeds when you're deeper into the draft like you've been in years past.
Well, yeah, and there's so much more information, too. Before, my first few drafts, you didn't have TrackMan. You didn't have combine and assessment. You didn't have the pitching developments and the grips and the way that we analyze and measure a pitch arsenal the way we do now. But luckily, this year, the lottery ball fell our way, and we picked 5th. And so our goal was to not overcomplicate it. It was to get 5 names, to get our 5 names and know that it was impossible for one of those 5 names to not be there. And so we dove in. We spent a lot of our time as a big group discussing about 10 names to get it to the 5 that we were ready with on draft day.
I know, publicly we have these mock drafts that we see out there. I'm sure you guys probably do some of that stuff internally as well. Were you surprised that Liam Doyle was available with the 5th overall selection? Because none of the publicly available data suggested that he was going to be there.
Yeah, I think that the same way we didn't know Weatherholt was going to be there when on some mock drafts he was mocked to go 1-1. You have to be prepared for it. And I think what I read was that third-party publications said that the top 10 picks or so were as unsettled as any draft that they recall. And so what I take that to mean, if it's true, is that teams' boards might have been vastly different than each other's. And I wonder if they might have had different signability goals or different ways to allocate their signing pool. And so I think in the days and weeks ahead, you'll begin to see what sort of strategy by other teams in front of us played into the availability of Doyle.
Randy, I've had a lot of conversations with members of the Blues front office in their drafts of years past, and talking with them, they've always had the same mainstay in terms of philosophy. They look for character and they look for hockey sense on the ice. Those are the first two things that they judge before they even get into the nitty-gritty of the player. Is there like a must with the Cardinals when you're looking at certain players or philosophies of the types of players you're willing to draft?
I think the baseball draft is just so much different than the other drafts. There's just so much more length of time between, most players being drafted and get to the major leagues. And you certainly do not want to be in a position where you are drafting for need, because need could change, right? We have significant catching depth, but all it takes is 2 foul tips and that depth is eroded. And so you really just want to take the best player on your board. Now, there's a spot in the draft where later in the draft you are looking for some org assistance, especially when it was a 40-round draft and there was 3 more short season teams. But really our process goes into making sure that we've done everything as possible to vet our board and make sure that the group of players that we have in mind for each pick are the right subset.
You mentioned signability a little bit ago, and I'm curious, when you look at the way that you guys were able to kind of play the board this year, you have that comp pick that at times you haven't had in the past, and you didn't have to give up a pick this year because of a qualifying offer potentially for a player that you signed in the offseason. How much does that impact the flexibility that you have to take guys in certain areas that maybe in the past you wouldn't have been able to acquire?
Oh, my gosh, yes. Great question. And it made it for fun preparation. I mean, back-to-back years, we had no second-round pick and then certainly no comp pick. And so there's a big bucket of players that you just don't spend a lot of time on usually, especially last year when we picked 7th and then didn't pick again until I think it was in the 90s, our 3rd round. And so there's just a huge bucket of college pitching, high school players, college position players that are gone. And then of the high school players that are left, it's going to be harder and harder to sign them, especially if your first pick, you don't save money, which we wound up not saving money on Weatherholt's pick. And so it was a really exciting, which also made it exhausting because there were so many players to discuss. But just the opportunity to be in that bucket made it invigorating for our group.
Randy, I am curious now. You've been doing this for some time with the Cardinals. Have you seen elements of the draft or the players that are entering the draft eligibility? Have you seen things change from what it was when you first started?
Oh, especially with NIL, I have to imagine it's crazy different.
I think that it's something that we started seeing come into play later in the draft. The NIL hasn't gotten so crazy that the top of the draft is affected in general. Now, there's been a couple instances the last year that have shown that you got to be careful even inside your top 3 rounds. But it's really the players that are at those big schools, or not even at the big schools, but in the transfer portal and are in the portal to go to a big school, that you're really having to hope that the info you have on their signability is correct. And you're talking from about the 7th round all the way through the 20th, because you run up against some INL numbers that are competitive.
We're talking to Randy Flores, Cardinals assistant general manager here on BK and Ferrario. Appreciate him giving us a little bit of time the week of the Major League Baseball draft. So I do want to talk about a couple of the other starters, a couple of the other pitchers that you were able to get from this year's class, because so much time has been spent on Liam Doyle for good reason, right? Tanner Franklin and Cade Crossland. It feels like both of those guys have a specific pitch that on the outside we've been talking about. For Franklin, it's that fastball, and for Crossland, it's the changeup that he has that people really like. What was it for you guys that stood out about why you wanted to add them to your system?
Yeah, so when you look at Franklin, he was a reliever, but he was a reliever at Tennessee. I think they had, 42 pitchers or 42 players drafted on a 20-man team. It was kind of impressive.
We talked to Tony Vitello. That's basically the way he talked about it.
Right? I mean, so you could make a case that but for being on that team, he's a starter somewhere else. The other thing, though, is that he was a multi-inning reliever. And so I think you could use it as like when you look at the components of the arsenal, the horsepower, the size, he kept his stuff. He pitched multiple innings multiple times. It's like a starting pitcher conversions toolkit. And it was really intriguing to get that paired with the elite velocity, the elite way his fastball plays. Well, then also now looking at Cross and the changeup, you see in the big leagues against left-handed starters, lineups are just stacked by right-handed batters, right? It's a great time to give a left-handed batter a day off or two. And so his ability to neutralize right-handed bats, the possibility of adding that and continuing to improve his arsenal. Look, I know he had a higher ERA. For us, we were looking at the components under that ERA. And what stood out for that is that he could miss right-handed bats, both in zone and out of zone. And our pitching group thought that they could help when they got their hands on him.
One other guy, Randy, for me that I've heard, it's not a pitcher, it's a position player, but I've seen a lot of people talk about after the pick was the 6th-round selection, the outfielder Matt Mira. I've seen a lot of people talk about kind of what he's done at the University of Hawaii and how they feel like this could be a sneaky good pick for the Cardinals. What did you see with that selection?
Hey, I hope. I fingers crossed here that's sneaky, right? It's harder and harder to get sneaky picks. You think back to Tommy Edman in the later rounds and Lars Nootbaar in the later rounds and Donovan in the later rounds. Those guys are now just going, inside the top 3 rounds these days, it seems. So I think we were benefited of the fact that it was in Hawaii, right? If he was in the SEC or the ACC or one of the more power schools, I don't think he would have gotten where he got. But we're glad he did, because he's not just someone who has elite bat-to-ball skills. He's also someone who's described as just a fierce competitor, plays with his hair on fire, as they say in the scouting world, and has plus speed and plus defense in center field. And so that's just rarefied to have that in the 6th round. And, our fingers were crossed as we thought we had a chance to get in. Yeah, good call by you guys.
A few logistical questions that I've got for Randy Flores, Cardinals assistant GM, director of scouting here on BK and Ferrario. With Franklin, are you guys planning to start him? Is that the expectation? Is that he'll open up as a starter and then kind of see where things go from there?
Look, I think one of the ways to say it is that they all start out as starters, kind of, right? And then they tell us. I think that's the mindset that our group wants to have. Is just because someone's role was what it was, but does it have to be in the future? Look, it might not work, and he might be more comfortable in the pen, or he might be someone who takes to it. But he and our player development group are going to carve that path out together in partnership.
Ryan Mitchell, you guys selected him as an outfielder. That's what he was announced as. He's, I think, a shortstop in high school. This is a high school kid. It's going to be a minute before I would imagine we see him at the big league level. But what is the current plan with him?
So I think we announced it as an outfielder, as to put him in center field as a range of outcomes. I didn't know that they were going to omit shortstop, center field. You don't really control that, when you click the button and select the player. But I just think it's an up the middle player. There's such value up the middle. Think of catching, shortstop, second base, center field. Even look at our own team and how we want to be strong up the middle defensively. And he fits that, first of all. Dynamic athlete, dynamic tools, dynamic twitch. But you pair that with, over the summer showcase circuit, and I think some third-party publications have agreed with us on this, is that he had really good at-bats, really good bat-to-ball for a young hitter. The other thing that we look for, and look, it's a different type of profile than we take a shot at Walker, a shot at Gorman, a shot at Baez, some of that power. His is more bat-to-ball, and it's whole field. And it's really, really impressive to see a young hitter do that against some of the best arms in the country in the summer.
One other thing that I wanted to make sure that we asked you about, because we've seen a lot of these questions on the text line over the last few days. Can you explain the role that Chaim Bloom, because I know you guys are in this transition period right now. Mo is currently in charge of the team still. Can you explain the role that Chaim Bloom played in the room with you guys for the draft?
Yeah, I think that's best for Chaim Bloom to explain.
Sure.
And so I would just say it was a great teamwork. It was great collaboration across the new partners we have in our pitching department, our performance department, our farm system. And I look forward to him, talking to you guys about his thoughts on this process and involvement. But I could just say as a group, our staff came away really impressed with our collaboration.
We'll talk with him probably in November would be my guess. On Serfolio, Rob Cerfolio, we had him on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. He was fantastic. What is the collaboration like between the scouting arm of the organization and the development arm of the organization as you're going through this draft process?
Look, it started even this morning. We had a Zoom with about 55 participants across scouting and player development about these new players onboarding. Just making sure that our goal, when we met with players and when we talked with our scouts, it was to have as accurate of information as possible to hand off to player development so that within minutes, not days and weeks, they have that they're confident in the picture portrayed of a player. Why? Because the goal is to get that player as good as possible, as fast as possible. And that runs the gamut from his physical performance, the way his body moves, the way his arsenal plays now, the way we believe it could play in the future, what we think is possible to add, both in size, strength, range of motion, velocity, swing speed, etc. And so that collaboration and teamwork was amazing. The other way that we look at it, as we always have, is on the pitching side. How a pitcher moves, what his mechanics and delivery is like. Additionally now, what are the components that we like of a pitcher's arsenal profile, way of fastball plays, way of breaking ball plays off of it, the separation in pitches. And so we got very granular this year. And candidly, I think it's a fun thing about having the draft later. I know it's a pain in the neck to scout. I live it, to scout, 2 classes concurrently, both be ready for the draft while scouting for the next one. But having that time from when the last game ends to then a few weeks into the draft, because there's so much more information and because there's so much more collaboration, I feel that time affords a competitive edge for those teams willing to put that work in.
All right, we'll get you out of here on this one, and we appreciate the time. Randy Flores is our guest here on 101 ESPN. We've seen things go a couple of different ways depending on the pitcher. I know Graceffo, you mentioned, I think he immediately got some innings for the Cardinals. Is the anticipation that Liam Doyle will get on the mound for you guys at some point the rest of the year, or are you guys going to kind of shut him down, say, hey, good season, threw a lot of innings for Tennessee? How do you view his near future for the Cardinals?
Well, look, it starts with how Liam Doyle feels about Liam Doyle, and I can say that he was hoping that we put him on a plane and sent him to Arizona after we signed him to lead the team. That's how this kid's wired. We had him walk around on the field, and he was asking if he could throw a bullpen, and so
that's amazing.
He's aggressive and he wants to play. We'll try to be smart about pairing that with what we think is best, given his workload. The time between competitive, full adrenaline ABs as they chart this out this week here at the complex.
Hey, Randy, this has been great, man. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today. I know our listeners have absolutely loved hearing you break down some of the new selections for the Cardinals. We'll talk with you again soon as we get further along here.
All right. Thanks, boys.
Thanks, Randy.
That's Randy Flores, Cardinals Assistant General Manager and Director of Scouting. Had a big week this week with the St. Louis Cardinals draft, adding a lot of young talent to the system. I wanted to make sure I asked about the competitive balance pick because that's something they haven't had in the last few years. I think it does a lot for a guy like Randy Flores, flexibility.
Yeah.
You just have this so much bigger of a bonus pool, and that changes some of the talent. Like Ryan Mitchell, I don't think they were able to get that kind of talent in previous seasons. And this year, they were able to get him. And we'll see what it becomes. But he's a high upside, high school player that can, like you said, play up the middle. Could be a lot of fun to watch him develop in the system. All right, don't want to take any more time away from Ask Us Anything. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, want to react to the interview that we just did with Randy Flores, we'll get to those coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
you've got questions, BK and Ferrario may have the answers. Questions and Answers presented by Vantage Credit Union. As a local financial partner, Vantage puts your needs first. Membership eligibility required.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. From the 314, guys, why are the Cardinals so secretive about Bloom? I don't understand it. I'm with you. I don't get it either.
I just want to know if he's okay. Are they feeding him? Are they dropping the basket down and to put the lotion in the basket?
Yeah, he's unavailable for interviews this season. When you ask about his involvement and stuff, it is typically, and this is not a Randy Flores thing. No. Like, I can't tell you guys enough how much I appreciate him doing this. He did not have to. And,
totally.
He was great. It's a organization-wide thing, so I don't know. I don't understand it either. I think it's kind of silly. But
Blues are the same thing with Steen. They just, sometimes you just don't want him to. Sometimes you want to get his feet wet before you put him in front of the microphone and kind of control what you can control, whether you like it or not.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, what's your favorite kind of meat to eat at a barbecue restaurant? Grant, go ahead and chime in on this as well. Grant's got to be chicken.
No, Grant doesn't eat meat other than boiled chicken.
That's not true at all. That's not true. I don't eat anything with sauce on it usually.
That's true.
So
that's very true.
So like barbecue, I don't really.
Really?
The meat I eat is plain.
Yeah. Like literally throughout the Blue season, Grant's like, I'm going to go warm up my food. It's boiled chicken.
It's not boiled chicken. That's ridiculous. It's baked chicken.
With salt.
And it's seasoned. It's seasoned. It has Parmesan cheese on it.
Okay.
I feel so bad for the guy.
So you're chicken when you go to barbecue spot?
Yeah, chicken. I like brats, burgers.
Burnt ends are my number one go-to if possible.
Yeah, burnt ends. Mine's brisket. Go brisket all the time. Yeah, I love it. Now I've gotten big into smoking brisket. It's very time consuming, but I love it.
From the 314, guys, I recently started a job in Creve Coeur. I just realized that it's way closer to Hubbard Radio than I thought. Where's your go-to food spot around here in Creve Coeur? For lunch, I've taken a liking to Pickleman's. Need more advice. I go to Crushed Red a decent amount. That's kind of like right underneath where we're at. There's another spot right down the street called Fit Flavors. It's just like you go in, they've got some microwavable meals. It's not like ultra processed. So I go over there occasionally if I just need something quick. Those are kind of the go-tos out here. Otherwise, I typically go back to the St. Charles area where I live. So those would be two immediately.
Nice spot a couple minutes away that, when I'm in a pinch and I need some food for hockey season. It's called McDonald's, I believe. It's great. Yeah, Joya's is my spot, right down the street. That's the spot in Creve Coeur for me.
There's actually a Mexican restaurant right around the corner as well. It's in that little complex with the Ollies. I don't remember what it's called, actually. Yeah, but I like it. It's good.
Be a good Mexican restaurant.
That place is good. The 618 or the 3 Traditional.
Oh, yeah. That's what it is. That's what it is.
They've got a Traditional 636 or 618, whatever it is, out in St. Charles. It's very good. It's their sister restaurant.
I need to go try that then. I love me a good Mexican spot.
From the 618, guys, you excited to see the Bananas this weekend? And do you think that there will be any special guests?
I had a banana today.
Savannah Bananas are in town. I will be at the game on Saturday, so if you guys are going up, we're in the upper level. If you see me out there, feel free to say hello. Would love to see some of you guys out there. Maybe. We'll see.
BK will buy you a lot of beer.
We just finished our basement renovation. The bank account's looking a little light.
He said he can't say no to a beer request, so if you see him, request a beer and make sure his wife is next to him.
We'll see what the prices are on the beers before we officially accept that.
He will give you a beer.
If we're in the Budweiser Terrace and they're running specials, I will buy you a beer.
Get out of here.
You got a deal.
He will buy everybody a thing of barbecue nachos if you're out there.
I'm super excited about it. I think it's a really cool thing. I'm excited to see it in person. Watched it on television a couple of times. I don't know who their special guest will be here in St. Louis. I kind of hope Nelly does a pop-up thing. I saw All American Rejects
that was awesome.
One in Boston, so I think that would be a cool little touch to it, but I don't know who they're going to go with.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be some type of St. Louis flavor. Nelly would make the most sense. Or you get, my God, why am I blanking on it? Murphy Lee, Chingy pops
got a
out.
little bit of an issue right now between one another. I think there's a problem between them.
Well, not all of them together. I just figured he might show
One
up.
over the other? That's
Yeah,
fair.
no.
I think you kind of have to choose.
Yeah, no, Nelly's doing his own thing. I'm just saying the other ones might show up if Nelly's not there.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Grant Francis. I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, we're going to continue talking about prospects. It's basically prospects week here on BK and Ferrario. Geoff Pontes is one of the best prospect writers in the business. He writes for Baseball America. He's going to join us to continue our conversation about the Cardinals prospect haul next year on 101 ESPN.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex Alex Ferrario and Grant Francis. I'm Brandon Kiley. Happy to go back out to the Callier and Thompson hotline. It's basically Prospects Week here on BK and Ferrario. We just got done talking with Cardinals assistant GM Randy Flores a little bit ago. We talked to JJ Cooper of Baseball America earlier this week, Keith Law earlier this week as well. And now we are joined by Geoff Pontes. He's the prospects writer for Baseball America. I've been told by some he's one of the best in the business at actually breaking down these prospects. So we're happy to have him here on the show. Geoff, how you doing today, man? Appreciate the time.
Not too bad. Yeah, enjoying the summer Friday, good weather, and I get a little downtime now that the MLB draft is over and games aren't starting for a few more hours.
Yeah, I would imagine it's been, to say a busy week would be putting it mildly. So let's start out with the Cardinals here. What they were able to get in this year's draft. The obvious starting point is with Liam Doyle, their number 5 overall selection. I was surprised to see him there with the number 5 overall pick. It seemed like every mock draft available had him going somewhere in the top 3. Were you surprised that he was even on the board when the Cardinals selected at number 5?
I wasn't totally shocked. I think so much of this top 10 to 12 in this draft was really in flux. I still think now you could have had different teams in the 1, 2, 3 spot, and just based on what draft boards were and what evaluations were, we could have had, 3 completely different 1, 2, 3 picks, where there's a scenario where maybe Doyle was in that conversation and does go 1. Leading up to the draft, I would say of my 5 years being on the draft floor and covering the MLB draft with BA, this was probably the year where there was a lot of uncertainty at the top 3 spots. And I don't think that's always necessarily the case. We tend to get word on when the first pick or who the number 1 pick is going to be, 3 to 4 hours before the draft, kind of at minimum. This was like 15 minutes before the pick was made was when we kind of first heard Willits, and it was like, okay, this is the alternate scenario where things could go a little funny. We knew that Bremner was an Angels sort of target because they spent a lot of time just frankly scouting Bremner throughout the season. Reports that we got, whereas there were always Angels guys in his games. We kind of anticipated that Cade Anderson or Liam Doyle would go ahead of Bremner. And I think you're seeing what he signed for, 75% of slots, so the minimum that he was offered, because he did take the physical at the combine, which changes how the slot works. I won't get into all that behind baseball type stuff. But so I think that all set up for Cade Anderson to then drop to 3, which I think you can argue is the best player pitcher in the draft, and Liam Doyle to 5, who I think is the only guy that really has any argument against Anderson for the best pitcher in the draft. And, I think the thing with Doyle is, just from a pure stuff perspective, he is the top guy. It's not an 80 fastball, but it's probably a plus fastball. Just the combination of velocity, unique release traits, and then movement. It creates a really unusual plane to the plate from a left-hander. And I think we have to keep in mind that lefties tend to throw a little bit harder on average, a little softer on average than right-handers do. So when you're talking about a lefty that's sitting 7 to 8, it's like a right-hander sitting 99 to 100. It's top of the scale velocity. The big question is the secondaries. I think if we look at the track record of teams and college pitchers over the last handful of years, it seems that adding a quality breaking ball that's at least major league average or thereabouts is something that major league teams have been really successful with. I think Joe Ryan is sort of a perfect name to call out. And Ryan didn't have sort of the raw talent and power and isn't left-handed like Liam Doyle. So I think you put all those traits into perspective. This is a really exciting pick. And I would argue of all the pitchers, and they've taken a lot over the last 10 years, I think you can argue that this is the highest ceiling guy. That doesn't necessarily mean he reaches that ceiling. But high ceiling, and he's a maniac on the mound. And he's like that. He's like that if he's in the gym. He's the kind of guy that could compete against little leaguers, strike them out, and would be, talking junk after he got some swinging strikes from 12-year-olds.
So
he's just that level of competitor.
So like Billy Madison in dodgeball, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it would exactly be that scene where he's just taking out kids, blowing it by him at 98, and, doing a little strut. So he's never going to take a playoff. He's not a guy like that. You're not going to have to worry about this guy, not putting in the work off the field. Kind of a famous story. I live over here in Massachusetts, not far from the primary Cressy facility. before he went to the Cape after his freshman year, he just showed up and knocked on the door without an appointment and said, hey, I want to train for a couple of weeks. Came in and, killed it in the gym and on the mound. So he's a guy that's leveled up every year too. Went to Coastal, gets into the SEC with Ole Miss. Ole Miss situation wasn't great. Ends up at Tennessee, which, were the defending champions at that time. And I think you can argue was probably the best program in college baseball right now. So pretty exciting player. I mean, I'm all in on Doyle. I'm probably the highest guy on Doyle internally. But he is divisive because of the fastball usage is so high. So
Geoff, I mean, we've seen a lot of people and heard a lot of people say like, upside is a number 2. Is that what you think ceiling is for Doyle, or is there a chance that this guy could be ace level stuff for the Cardinals?
It's so hard to really predict an ace, and I think the thing with pitching that's different than hitting is it's really hard to replicate major league at bats against a major league lineup consistently, even in the high minors. Like, you're not seeing that lineup. They have the robot machine for hitters where, guys can get on the traject machine and it models Garrett Cole. So you can take pro at bats, right? Like, you can replicate a game. It's so hard with starters that I think so much of it is like that aptitude and that work ethic and all that sort of stuff. And I think Doyle does have some of that. When guys get up to the big leagues, they take a big step. So I think when you say somebody can be a number 2, you're not that far off from taking that other step to an ace. Often it's not the guys we expect. I don't think anyone expected Garrett Crochet to necessarily be an ace, but the upside was there. Certainly Jacob deGrom, when, was at Stetson, no one anticipated he would turn into what he did. And I think it's what guys do with those tools once they get up to the major leagues. All these starting pitchers, for the most part, get the heck kicked out of them. Their first year and a half in the majors, and there's usually an adjustment. So just a matter of how he makes that adjustment. But I think when you look at a lefty with this size, that quality of fastball, which everything kind of works off of, he's ahead of the game. I think there's certainly an opportunity that this guy could blossom into an ace if he finds a plus breaking ball, the splitter continually gets swinging strikes like it did in college, and the fastball continues to play, which I don't have a lot of doubts about. So there's some things that he has to do to get there, but certainly the ingredients are there. I don't think anybody can debate that.
We're talking to Geoff Pontes, prospects writer for Baseball America. He's joining us here on BK and Ferrario. Appreciate his time as always. Geoff, I do want to expand the conversation a little bit to not just Liam Doyle, but kind of zooming out on what this Cardinals draft is going to provide to their system. We talked to Randy Flores both earlier today on the show and then earlier this week via Zoom. And he mentioned how they were looking for outliers. With Liam Doyle, it's the fastball. You look at some of the other pitchers, Tanner Franklin, fastball. Kate Crossland, he's got the changeup. And then for some of the position player guys, they had a specific outlier tool as well. For you, when you looked at what the Cardinals got this year in the draft, was there any theme that stood out to you? Any kind of a philosophy that showed itself via their selections? What did you make of kind of the zoomed out view of what the Cardinals were able to do this year?
Yeah, and I wonder how much of this was Chaim Bloom's influence.
Don't ask them; they won't tell you. It's not available.
They started to target guys, as you said, with more outlier traits. I felt like for so long, this team is really drafted heavily based on K to walk ratio in college. And we've seen a lot of solid pitchers come through this system. We haven't seen guys with that upper echelon, high-end stuff that can take that jump, as we just talked about, in the big leagues to become a front-of-the-rotation type of starter. So they've gone out of their way to target some better traits. I think Doyle fits into that conversation. I think Franklin fits into that conversation. You called out Crossland. I had a lot of analysts that were calling out the Peyton Graham pick, righty out of Gonzaga, as a really good pick as well. Ty Van Dyke from Stetson has some traits that are interesting. So I think you look at that, they're going after more power, more unusual traits in terms of movement and release characteristics. All that stuff kind of blends together to make quality pitches, fastball velocity, movement, and then deception, how it comes out of your hand, right? I think that's something that's maybe a little harder to quantify. But it's something when you talk to hitters, you stand in at bat, you sit behind home plate, you see those traits sort of play. So they've done a good job of that. I think Ryan Mitchell in the second round has a ton of upside. Physical guy at 6'2", 185. There's still a ton of room for him to add strength. It's an athletic build. He's an above average runner. It's an above average hit tool with really good swing decisions, which I think when we look at high school hitters that have contact and swing decisions, and then some physical projection, those are the guys that you want to target. They can grow into more power. They have that athleticism, a little bit of speed, the ability to probably stick at a position, for him in the outfield, for a lot of guys at shortstop. And that's why they're so desirable as, potential picks. He's also a guy that the power hasn't really shown up much in games, but it does in BP. A lot of loud EVs, a lot of loud contact. And I think some of that is just making a few adjustments. And, another point that I think we got to make about a lot of these draftees in the current environment, they don't go out to the complex league any longer. That's ending in a couple of weeks. So the teams really have close to 8 months between shutdown in August and the bridge leagues that they play in, the off-season development and hitting camps they do in October, November, sometimes early December, and then the work they're doing in January, February, leading up to finally playing games in late March. Teams have a lot of ability to now adjust swings, change things, tweak things, and get guys to learn new skills. So I think when you come in with good athletes and guys that maybe have that aptitude and physical ability to make some changes and develop, that's really exciting. I think this is one of the better Cardinals drafts since I've been covering this team, dating back to like 2019.
All right, Geoff, let's move away from this draft and go to a guy that was drafted last year for the Cardinals. We had Keith Law on yesterday who said J.J. Weatherholt is going to be a superstar in Major League Baseball, said he could be with the Cardinals as soon as this year, or should be a part of the Cardinals this year. Where are you at on the trajectory of J.J. Weatherholt in terms of potentially being that superstar bat that the Cardinals have been longing for since Pujols?
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to be Albert Pujols. That's for certain. I don't think he did show some power in the futures game. There's power there. He's a hitter with power. What do I mean by that? I mean, a guy that isn't going to sell out to try to consistently put the ball, over the fence. He's going to take what pitchers give him. He's always going to hit for a high average. The strikeout rate is going to be pretty low. He's going to walk at a high rate. He's got speed. He's going to be able to take the extra base. He's going to do a lot of the little things over and over again that's going to make him a really valuable player. Do I think that he's going to be your cleanup hitter? Is there maybe an additional guy that needs to kind of complement him a little bit here? For sure. One of my favorite players, one of my favorite people in the game is Brendan Donovan. I've been fortunate enough to get to know him a little bit over the last couple of years. I think he's a lot like Brendan, but probably a better, maybe not a better athlete, but maybe a little more explosive, a little bit bigger. I think can do a lot of the same things where, Brendan kind of never takes a play off and makes a lot of really smart, intelligent baseball plays. I think that's the same with Weatherholt. Might hit for a higher average. And as I said, get on base a lot. And he can play shortstop. There's probably a little bit more defensive value there as well. Whether he moves over to third base or shortstop, I think that depends. You got Mason Wynn at short. So maybe it's third. You got in a pretty good third baseman right now. So maybe
or second. I mean, second's been another spot they've talked about.
He could be a plus to better defensive second baseman. That infield is going to be stellar. Once Weatherholt is there at second or whatever. I think, Brendan's done a great job too. So it's a good problem to have. It's kind of where does he fit in kind of defensively? But for a lot of teams that don't have a guy like Mason Wynn at shortstop, he's probably the shortstop for 10 years, I'd say Xander Bogaerts is probably a good comp if you're looking for production.
I mean, we'd sign up for that
I'll
tomorrow
take that.
if we could get it. Follow-up question on that.
Bogaerts, yeah.
Does he make sense in a lineup that already has left-handed hitters like Brendan Donovan? And I'm not saying you trade J.J. Weatherholt, but just kind of looking at where the Cardinals are at right now, how he fits into the future. Does he make sense with Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar as guys that can all kind of coexist in that same lineup together, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly lefty heavy, but I think you can make that work. Okay. All good hitters, all good players. I think, the superpower with all those guys is they all get on base. None of them strike out at a really high rate, do a lot of things well. So yeah, I think that's totally possible. And he sort of fits in best at second. I think you end up moving Nolan Gorman out of second base probably.
And do you think Donnie would then be an outfielder for you in that scenario, or could you play Donnie at third?
Yeah, I mean he's kind of been willing to play all over the field. Probably could play a little bit of third base. He did play a little bit of third base as an amateur. He's got a famous story about that one. You'd have to ask him yourself. But yeah, so I mean I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Maybe the arm isn't necessarily up to snuff there, but I think you can put him in the outfield, and I think it's a good problem to have. There's a lot of positional versatility with these guys. You can give guys days off of rest. There's always injuries that you're going to have to deal with. So I do think there's a way to sort of make this fit. But yeah, it's too many players for, the amount of musical chairs that you kind of have laying out there in the lineup. That's for sure. But once again, kind of a good problem to have.
He's Geoff Pontes. You can read his work over at Baseball America. If you want to follow him on Twitter, you can do so. Geoff, Geoff, Pontes, Pontesba. Or you can check us out on Twitter, 101 ESPN. You can find him from there, direct link to his stuff. Geoff, thanks so much for the time today, man. This has been great to be able to get a little smarter about the Cardinals prospects. We'll talk with you again soon.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on.
Geoff. You got it. That's Geoff Pontes joining us here on BK and Ferrario. Appreciate his time breaking things down from the Cardinals draft and prospect perspective. Alex, coming up next, I want to get into this. There's been a clear philosophical shift for the Cardinals. That's not just in their pipeline with their development system. It's also who they've been acquiring. And I think that's been made clear in our conversations with both Geoff Pontes and also Randy Flores earlier today. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and Grant on BK. If you guys have missed any of our conversations today, check them out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. The podcast page is all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
Randy Flores, the Cardinals assistant GM, talked to us. We just got off the phone with Geoff Pontes. He's a writer for Baseball America. If you want anything Cardinals prospect related, if you're a prospect head, boy howdy, was this the show for you. Speaking of which, Alex, in talking with both of them, Geoff and Randy Flores, it seems pretty clear there's been a bit of a philosophy switch. And what I mean by that is it sure seems as though the Cardinals are willing to, no pun intended, strike out. Nice. They're willing to say, hey, if we miss on this guy because we were aiming for upside, so be it. And I think a lot of what's gone wrong for them is they've been a little too safe. They've been too safe in trades. They're unwilling to give up prospect capital for a guy that, hey, you don't know if it'll work out. Like a Marcell Ozuna, for example. I think they've been pretty safe in their drafts where, hey, we'll take the Dakota Hudsons and we'll go out there and get Michael McGreevy. We're going to get guys that are easily projectable. They will get to the big leagues. They'll probably be a starter, but it would be a shock to everybody and their mother if they ever were anything more than a number 3 starter at the big league level. Like, that's kind of been where they are. And what you end up with is a team that looks like the Cardinals. That wins 85 games, but if you don't have external improvements of significance, they don't have the star power to be able to compete with the likes of the Phillies, the Padres, the Dodgers, the Mets, etc. And I think that's where you end up getting stuck. What they appear to be doing now, and we'll see if this sustains under Heimblum, is betting on upside. Ryan Mitchell is an upside pick out of high school in the second round. Liam Doyle is the ultimate upside pick of, hey, he throws 100. Let's see what it looks like with his secondaries, and if we can make those work out, this guy might be a legit number 1 or 2 starter on a big league contender, not just on a big league team like Matthew Liberatore is right now. Mm-hmm. I think that, to me, was the biggest takeaway from this year's draft. Do you agree with that? Do you have something different?
No, I agree with that. And I think part of the reason you do that, and it's probably not their reason, but I wonder if the state of the NL Central, specifically the Brewers and the Reds and where the Cubs are at, part of the reason why you try and shift things up. And what I mean by that is the longest time you've gone with the same profile of a pitch to contact, hit the strike zone. We've got the shift, so defensively we'll make sure we're good there. But you see guys like Mizorowski and you see guys like Woodruff and Hunter Green for Cincinnati and all of these swing and miss guys that they just keep churning through. And you're like, man, we can't find these guys. We keep getting the pitch to contact. We're not going to spend in the free agent market. We need to start at least staying in the same competitive window with these teams in terms of churning out these types of players. Now you're taking those big swings. And if you miss, then you miss. It's the draft. It's going to happen at some point. But to miss and say, well, we didn't draft that guy because we like the pitch to contact or we like hitting the strike zone and making sure we're consistent there, that's more frustrating for a fan base than saying, look, we are going upside where everybody believes this is one of the best players available in the draft. It's just got to pan out at the major league level. And if it does, watch out. If it doesn't, you know what? We took chances. And sometimes chances are what you need to take if you're a team in the position like the Cardinals.
Somebody on the text line said, guys, picking number 5 gave them the luxury to do that. Maybe that's it. Maybe this is all about, you know what, they had the number 5 overall pick, and so they got a player that was not previously available to them at, 20, 25, 27, etc. But then you go down further. Tanner Franklin, with the number 72 overall pick, was a reliever in college, Alex. They drafted a guy that was not a starter for his college team, and they're saying, we think that guy can be a starter for us. That is not what the Cardinals have done in the past. No. That is not the way that they have operated. They avoid picks like that because Tanner Franklin may never be more than a reliever for them. And if you draft a reliever with number 72, yeah, there's value in that, don't get me wrong, but is that a good outcome? I guess. It's fine. It's certainly not what you're aiming for with the number 72 overall pick. So that pick, to me, really spoke to where they're at. The Ryan Mitchell pick, to me, at number 55 overall, a high school shortstop / center fielder, it spoke to where they're at right now. More so even than the number 5 overall pick, because the texter's right. The number 5 pick should be an outlier compared to what they have been. They haven't been picking that high. The 55 and 72 overall selections, those to me were where I was like, okay, this feels different. Feels different than what they have been doing in the past.
And everything you read about the draft talked about how Chaim Bloom's fingerprints were all over this draft philosophy in terms of that velocity and
Feels
swing
that
and
way,
pitch.
at least.
And if that's the case, I mean, yes, the 5th overall pick is part of it, but I mean, just go back to the Mizorowski conversation that we've had. When he was drafted, what was it, 3rd round, 2nd round? Cardinals took a different type of player. So when you take those risks now, to me, that's the change of philosophy, that when you get to the 2nd, 3rd, the 4th round, it's like what Randy Flores was saying. Like, look, it's so hard to get those sleeper picks late in drafts because those guys are going so high now.
Yep.
But if you're willing to take risks, you take those sleeper picks that you hope are there in the 6th or 7th or 8th round and the 2nd or 3rd round because you see what the upside can be when you get them.
He's Alex. That's Grant on BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer. We've got Brad Thompson, Cardinals analyst, joining us at 1 o'clock. Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, at 1:30. If you don't like hearing us talk, this has been the show for you. Speaking of hearing other people talk, the mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. If you guys would like to get your thoughts in on this next segment, we would love to hear them. We'll get to you coming up next. Where do the Cardinals need to be in the standings in order to avoid selling? And we gave you our thoughts earlier today on how the remainder of the season is going to influence how Mo is remembered. That includes the deadline, of course. For you, will it influence the way that you remember John Mozeliak, or is it all for naught? And this season doesn't really matter. You've already made your determination on how you're going to remember the John Mozeliak era. We want to hear from you. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. We'll get to some of those, give you our thoughts next here on BK and Ferrario.
Grant Francis here with a SportsCenter update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals are back tonight following the All-Star break, and they'll start it out in Arizona with a 3-game set against the Diamondbacks, a team they swept back in May. It'll be an 8:40 first pitch tonight. It'll be Andre Palante getting the start for St. Louis. I'm Grant Francis. The SportsCenter update's been brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Hey guys, so great question. Happy Friday. Walt was the architect, Mo was the interior designer and added some pretty pieces. But he obviously didn't want pushback from the dugout after La Russa. I don't know. How do I know? Oh, I think 3 rookie managers in a row, 3 of them. And so you're darn right, I think leadership counts. And I don't care if it's at baseball, football, anything, anywhere. Leadership matters and collaboration matters. He's not collaborating with the dugout. We heard Edmonds the other day and Woody Williams talk about how Walt Jockney actually called them in the offseason about athletes. Our team loses 91 games in 2023, and our team doesn't even have an end-of-the-season press conference. It's unfortunate for Mo that he comes across so smug. I doubt if he's as smug as he comes across. But thanks for adding the nice pieces. But Mozeliak built nothing. All right, guys, have a good weekend.
That was Lisa.
Was she pouring herself a nice whiskey glass with some ice on a Friday?
That?
Yeah, that's what Lisa was doing. Mo makes her want to drink.
You know what?
I get it.
I have always wondered what it would be like. You know, have you seen Mad Men? You ever seen that show? So you've got like that, the cart that comes through. You're at an advertising firm. They've got all the drinks on there, and you're just hanging out. You got an old fashioned during the day. I just wonder what that life would be like. It's like 1 o'clock on a Friday. You're like,
dangerous on radio.
Old-fashioned number 1.
Dangerous on radio, that's for sure.
So anyways, our
one
question
old-fashioned
for you
and
guys,
weird. Fired.
Via the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app, the Scott Lee Heating mic drop feature. How will the remainder of this season influence how Mo is remembered? For Lisa, not at all. She, I would say, has made up her mind on how she will remember the John Mozeliak era. And I can't tell you guys how to feel. If that's your perspective on it, God bless you. I can disagree with it all I want, but hey man, it's your prerogative. It's your fandom. You can fan however you want to. Alex, for me, the remainder of the season, I do think it'll influence it a little bit. Just because, like, I want to see how this era comes to a conclusion and how it sets up the next era. I think that's always part of your legacy, right? For anything that you do, like part of my legacy here on Earth, if I have one, will be how I do raising my child, right? Like that's part of it, is not only what I do while I'm here, but also what I do for, influencing the next era of Kylie's running around town. Whoa. So we'll see, right? And to bring it back to Mo, we'll see how he sets up Pine Bloom for success, or if he sets up Bloom for success. I think the deadline's a big part of that. And this is my question to you. Where do the Cardinals need to be in the standings in order to avoid selling at this year's deadline? Because I think that's how you really probably, like, heart of hearts, truth serum, Mo would probably tell you, yeah, best way I can set up for the next president of baseball operations, Chaim Bloom, it's to sell Ryan Helsley. It's to sell Steven Matz. It's to sell Eric Fetty. It's to sell anybody else that's not already tied down.
You don't have any more names.
Phil Maton. I think Maton has real value at the deadline. But I don't think he wants to do that on Truth Serum.
Yeah. Well, and
so where do they need to be?
I mean, this might be too aggressive for me, but this is how I feel. I think you got to be second place in the wild card. I don't think
second place in the wild card.
Yeah, I don't think third place is enough. Because I think if you're in third place, I'm still going to look at this as, but I think San Diego can catch you. And now maybe that changes if you win both series against San Diego, but unfortunately for the Cardinals, the second series against the Padres is after the deadline. So you only get one against them. But sitting just in the last wild card spot, to me, because you're not going to be up like 3 games on any of these teams in that last wild card spot unless San Diego goes through just
a shock.
Yeah. That's why I think you'd have to catch the Mets. because that would be a shocking. Like you'd have to.
I mean, it's almost hard to do that mathematically. You're 4 games back right now with 13 games to play before the deadline.
I think that's just where I'm at right now. I just don't think sitting in that bottom wildcard spot on July 31st is going to be enough for me to look at the Cardinals and say, yeah, I think you should buy because of what you could potentially get in return for Helsley. And again, this can change when we find out what the return really is for him or what the speculation was of like, yeah, you're only going to get the 6th and the 7th best prospects in the team system. Cool, man, then just stick with Helsley. But I think the hope is out there that you could get something of real value in return that sets your team up for more success. And like we were talking about in the office, if I'm selling Helsley, you're probably just going to have to sell more stuff off, which is going to be tough to do. I just think you have to be in an unrealistic position for me to believe that you can be buyers at the trade deadline.
To me, I think if you're in a spot, you got to keep pushing forward. I've maintained that belief since day one here on the show. We're like, hey, if you're in a playoff spot and you sell Ryan Helsley, I think that's such a bad look. I get the idea of playing for the future, but I think you got to also play for the here and now. And hopefully you'll be able to get a comp pick for him in the offseason, whatever. I would not be selling Helsley in that scenario. I think where they're at right now is the hardest place to be at. You're game and a half back of a playoff spot. You're still very much in it, but you're not actually in a spot. Are you likely to get that with the Padres potentially adding at the deadline? It's hard to say. And then you'd potentially have to make that determination on Helsley. I do not envy their position with where they currently maintain their spot if they are there at the deadline. I think best case scenario for the Cardinals is either falling way out of it or having like a great 13-game stretch where they go like 10-3 and they find themselves in that spot that the Padres currently maintain. If you have that, you're good. If you have the opposite of that, you end up, okay, yeah, clearly we're a seller and we go that direction. Let's get back out to the mic drop feature via the 101 ESPN app, the Scott Lee Heating mic drop. Let's hear from Nick on whether or not the rest of the season will influence how he remembers John Mozeliak.
A lot of blame falls on Mo when a lot of the problem is higher than him. He does what he can with the money that he has. I think he has earned a lot of criticism and flack for the way that he talks to fans and the way that he talks to pretty much anyone. He's extremely condescending and he looks down his nose at pretty much everyone he's talking to like he knows better than everyone. And maybe he does, but the people who actually do know better are smart enough to know that you don't talk to people like that. And it almost feels like in the last few years he's just doubled down on that instead of trying to improve and get better. The whole press conference about like you guys are basically blessed to have me for another year even though everyone wants me gone is just kind of like him rubbing his nose in the fact that he knows that people don't like how he talks. And I don't know, it is what it is. You can tell that the message he's gotten from above is not to go win a World Series. It's to put as cheap of a team out as you can and keep the seats filled until the beginning of October. That's been their goal since 2016, and that's exactly what they've done. If the goal was higher, the results would be higher, but it's not. But that's not Mo's fault. It's the ownership.
That is what I was going to ask. Like, I think Nick sounds more mad at ownership than he does at Mo. He sounds like he doesn't like Mo on a personal level. Like that's fine.
Which
if you
is
just like
fair.
the way that Mo talks, that's totally cool. That's your perspective on it. But it sure sounds like his real Cardinals problem. Yeah. With the way that things are operating right now is actually with ownership, not with John Mozeliak.
That's why I find this so fascinating, this transition, because it feels like you're taking the decoy away after this season because people aren't just going to all of a sudden hate Chaim Bloom next year. Like when Chaim steps in and the team doesn't put a good roster together, they're not going to hate Chaim. They're going to look at the other part of the John Mozeliak era and say, man, this is on the DeWitts. Like there's no teddy bear to hide behind anymore, for lack of a better term. Like the DeWitts will be front and center for the Cardinals after this season because you're not going to blame Ollie. You're not going to blame Chaim. You're going to go straight to the source and say, well, you just got rid of the guy or the guy that was public enemy number one for the fans that we could all blame. He's gone. And now it's on you for not putting the finances together for the Cardinals to be competitive.
I think the biggest problem for Mo is just how long he's been here.
I do get the smugness comment because there is a little bit of a sense of when they talk, it's like the phrase that always stuck out with me was when he was asked multiple times, like, do you fear for your job? And he's like, no, I don't fear for my job.
But like, I hear you, Alex. Put yourself in Mo's shoes. How do you otherwise answer that question? Like, what if he doesn't fear for, like, Ollie has talked about this publicly, where he's not afraid of getting fired. And the reason why is because, like, he's super faithful and he's like, listen, man, like, I've got a great job. I love my job. I want to be the manager of the Cardinals. But no, I don't think about getting fired, because if I get fired, like, so be it.
That's
a
how
lot
you
of managers get fired.
That's how you answer it. Okay. I don't think that's how John Mozeliak answered it. Now, I could be wrong. This was a while ago, and selective hearing sometimes. Maybe that's on me. But I don't recall that being, well, I'm not afraid for my job because I feel like I've done a great job with this, and if something happens, then it's meant to be. It felt more like, well, I'm not worried about my job because, I'm where I'm at. That is where I feel like the smugness for fans comes into play. Where, again, not to always go back to Doug Armstrong, but it's the other one that you can compare it to. Whether people believe he is or not, I never get that vibe from Doug Armstrong when he's speaking.
Some of that is the sports. I think some of that is like baseball is just different.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. But I think when you're in the public view and you know that you have a boss to answer to, there's a level that you just don't want to cross, because at some point that's where it's going to get nasty for you.
All right, we're a little late on clock, so I've got a question for you. You tell me what you want to do here. We can go to the junk drawer and talk about a non-sports related conversation, or we can continue this conversation. We've got a mic drop from Andy that we can get to, and we can finish this up before we get to BT on the other side. Your call, which would you prefer to go to?
I hate you because I know we should carry over this conversation for how great we have, but man, do I have the ultimate junk drawer. But I will say, this junk drawer story is probably going to be here over the weekend, so my vote is, I guess we continue the conversation on John Mozeliak.
We'll continue hearing from you guys via the mic drop feature on the other side here on 101 ESPN.
it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Alongside Alex and Grant on BK. All right, normally we do the junk drawer here, but Alex, you selected. We continue our conversation about the Cardinals. We've been asking for your mic drops over on the Scott Lee Heating mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. How will the remainder of this season, if at all, influence how you view, how you remember the John Mozeliak era? We've given our thoughts on this. Want to hear from you. This one comes in from Nick, I think. Or
There's
Andy.
nothing
Sorry.
that Mozeliak can do at this trade deadline that would change my opinion of him. I think he's been an absolute failure as general manager. Any success that he had was with a core of players that came from Walt Jocketty's teams. He fired a manager who got them to the NLCS, who was then back there a few years later with the Padres. He's everything he's done has been an absolute disaster. The few prospects that he traded away were the best prospects that we have. The prospects that he kept, his cold dead hands guy, and Dylan Carlson ended up being a joke. I don't even know if he's in the majors anymore.
He's not.
They released the guy that they traded for him. You know, Harrison Bader's turned out to be nothing. Tyler O'Neill, I don't even know what he's doing anymore. It's just been an absolute joke. He's run the minor league system into the absolute ground. The Cardinals used to be the gold standard for their minor league system, and now they're at the bottom of the league. I just think that he's absolutely a failure, and there's nothing that he can do to change my opinion of that. I know that a lot of it was probably brought on by DeWitt, and DeWitt said as much, that he's more concerned about making less money year over year than he is about winning championships. So that's why nobody's going to the games anymore, and they won't until they actually start winning again. And hopefully Chaim Bloom can rejuvenate this organization.
Damn,
I
Nick,
will say this. I'm glad I went to Nick.
Yeah, I was going to say, Nick
Hot
is...
damn. You think he's upset?
Yeah, for hold the whiteboard up for everybody on YouTube.
Okay, yeah.
This is what Grant took time out of his schedule to put this together for BK. And I swear, if people could have seen the look that Grant gave BK when he said, let's go to Nick. Grant's like, are you bleeping kidding me? I have Andy queued up.
Okay, to be fair, we have two markers in here. I used the bad one first, so Andy is very light on the
It's
pen.
legible. It's legible. Shut up, Grant. That's legible.
Yeah.
BK.
Yeah, it's true.
That's trash, BK.
Do you have bad eyes?
I wear contacts, but
Okay.
You might need to get them looked at.
You might need a new
My
prescription.
eyes immediately went to Nick because it's just so big and bold, and then Andy was
I'm
there.
further away, and my eyes went directly to,
Really?
hey, Andy's first on that list. The turn
That's my
by
bad.
Grant. Oh, it was great. It was
Apologize.
just. Anyway, Nick, that was, yeah. I think Nick speaks for like 90% of Cardinals fans out there. Now, I don't know if I would go all the way to a failure. The man does have 2 World Series under his name, and whether you believe it was his World Series or not, he's still a part of that team. And the second one,
It feels like it was 4 years after he took over. I think it's crazy that Cardinals fans don't give John Mozeliak credit for 2011.
That's where
if it was the next year, all right. It was 4 years later.
That's where I was also going to push back with Lisa earlier, and don't get us wrong, we love Lisa, but like 2011, I'm not calling Mo an interior designer for that 2011 team. Yes, they had Pujols and Yachty, and they had the pieces that Walt Jocketty was a part of, but let's also remember Mo was a part of the team when they were drafting some of those guys, but Mo was also the man in charge of going after Lance Berkman that offseason, and Mo also did navigate that trade deadline to bring in the pieces that got them and won the World
Holiday,
Series.
I think was pretty good. I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I misremember that.
Again, I'm not going to go as far to say that he was an interior designer for that 2011 team. He was the guy in charge of it. But I do believe that Nick is correct in terms of he did drive that minor league system into the grave, essentially.
All right. Andy, we do have a mic drop from him.
I can't see that. Are
We'll
you
give
sure?
Andy the final word on this before we get to Brad Thompson, Cardinals analyst for Fanduel Sports Midwest, when he joins us next. Let's hear from
I don't
Andy.
think their position in the standings really matter. You know, I think the team has an exciting future for the first time in a long time. It's probably realistically a few years away from that getting locked in. So, you know, I would say look at anybody on your roster who you don't think is going to be a big part of who you are, your identity in 3 years, and say, okay, what's your best offer? I'd much rather see that than them sneak into the playoffs and get knocked out right away and give up the opportunity to expedite, some of this retool or rebuild. I think that differs a little bit from the Blues, and as their arrival was pretty imminent So that playoff experience really helped. I just don't see that as pertinent for the Cardinals at this point in the road.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
He was getting dressed, right?
He was totally putting his pants on when he was putting this mic drop together. And part of me wonders if he was in the bathroom when he was recording this mic drop. So, Andy, I stopped listening towards the back end of it because I heard a belt buckle.
Coming up next, Brad Thompson here on 101 ESPN.
Along with BK, I'm Alex Ferrario. BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We are efforting Brad Thompson. He's going to join us on the Callier and Thompson hotline. We believe video, but we're trying to connect with BT, so we'll get back to him in just a bit. Also going to catch up with Mike McKenna in the 1:30 segment. So about 25 minutes from now, we'll talk a little hockey with Mike McKenna. And we got One's Got to Go coming up in 15, where you send us the scenarios. 314-399-9646, Air Comfort Service text line. Also over on our YouTube chat at 101 ESPN STL The Graveyard. We'll get to One's Gotta Go in a little bit as well. So we're trying to connect with Brad Thompson here on BK and Ferrario, which BK's got this look on his face where he's like, we're going to get him. We're going to get him.
No, we're good. We switched up the link if anybody wants Inside Baseball. We switched up the link for our YouTube feed, so I need to update the link for BT. He went to the old one. We're getting him the new one.
So you just pulled an Andy on BT.
Yeah, so we're going to get that good to go here in just a moment. So Brad Thompson, Cardinals analyst for Fanduel Sports Midwest, will join us here in just a little bit. Alex, a huge couple of weeks for the Cardinals as they lead into this year's trade deadline. We are 13 days away. If you didn't know, July has 31 days. We could go ahead and do this on the air while BT's waiting for us.
Go ahead, you little 5-year-old.
So do you guys do the knuckle trick? So if you're not familiar with it...
You need to elaborate.
I should probably elaborate on that. January, February, March, April, May, June, July. If you go on your knuckles, you just drag your knuckles. The big knuckle is a 31-day month, and the smaller knuckle, the in-between your knuckle spot, that's either 30 or 28 if you're February. So January's 31, February 28. I did that earlier today on my knuckles, and Alex thought I had 7 different heads as I did it.
No, it's peek behind the curtain. BK just stopped talking to Grant and I. He was in the middle of a question, and then he just stopped talking, and he's counting his hand. And I was
looking at, deadline 31st.
Sure,
July
I've seen this before, but it was fun to watch Grant's reaction to seeing you do this, and then it just hit me. It's like, dude, you look like a 7-year-old trying to count. You're like, or Grant pointed out, you look like the guy that has to put his hands up to find out which one makes the letter L so he can decide which one's his left hand. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then you put the poll out there because that's how BK works. We question something that he does, which is insane. He puts it on Twitter to find out how many people believe he's right or wrong. 40% of people said absolutely not. 40% of people on the poll for BK said, what the hell are you talking about? So 80% of people basically look at you like you're crazy, with 20% who are also 7-year-olds that need to figure that out.
Yeah, well, I've got my fellow 7-year-olds. We're going to...
And then what was the other one that you came up with?
Multiplying by 9.
Yeah,
so if you put your fingers up...
This one...
And you put down a number. So, if you did 9 times 4, right? You got 36. 3 on the left, 6 on the right. It works for every number, up to 10, obviously, because you're only got the 10 digits. But 9 times 9, you got 81 here. I just taught a lot of people how to do this.
Or, this is just a wild concept. How about you just... He's on the air link, Grant.
Grant, we can do this off air or on air, but he's on the air like right over there. I'm watching him.
Hi, BT. Hi, BT. Also, by the way, just to finish our conversation about this multiplying, you could do the weird concept thing of just memorizing what 9 times 9 is without your weird hands.
Yeah, but it's,
Oh, man. And, today I learned you're a 7-year-old when it comes to numbers.
I bet you BT has heard of this. Brad Thompson, Cardinals analyst for Fanduel Sports Midwest. I think we have him on the air link, but he's just a big square on our video feed. BT, do you hear us, my friend? How you doing today? We do not.
See,
Brad Thompson.
We made Grant hang up on him.
Ferrario.
Grant was on with him.
This is the second time that we've had Brad Thompson on the air with us, Alex, and he gets out of this thing without even having to say anything.
He's doing the tunnel thing, where you don't want to have that conversation. We're like, oh my God, oh no, my Wi-Fi's not working. And then he just cuts out.
The Never-Ending Wipe says, longtime user of the knuckle trick, I stand with BK.
I don't think the Never-Ending Wipe knows what the knuckle trick is. I think he thinks the knuckle trick is something else.
314 says, elementary rhyme, 30 days have September, April, June, and November.
How is that a rhyme? None of that rhymes. 30 days has September, April, June. No.
Doesn't matter. All right, Brad Thompson on the air with us now via the Callier and Thompson hotline. We got all the technical difficulties aside. Cardinals analyst for Fanduel Sports Midwest. Cardinals back in action this evening on Fanduel against the Arizona Diamondbacks on the road. BT, what's good, man? You ready for the second half of the season to begin?
Well, I'm here for the knuckle trick, actually.
You heard about it, right?
I heard. Oh gosh, have I? And I'll tell you what, you want something that you'll need your whole life, knuckle trick. Now, I will say, did you finish telling them about it, or did you just go into it?
I have a feeling BT's talking about a different knuckle trick.
No, I think we're definitely on the same page.
I don't think we are.
It's
100% on the same page.
You can use different knuckles for different months.
You guys are insane.
You make it work. It really helps when you're on the air, especially.
Or this is a wild concept too.
How many days are in each
you just got to pull out your calendar and look and see.
Different thing. All right, BT, Cardinals back in action tonight. Jordan Walker back with the big league club, officially recalled, and it's Thomas Ajacey going down to AAA. I did want to ask you about Walker. It's obviously not the season that he was hoping for. Goes down to AA for a little while. Not the success that he was looking down there or for down there either. What do you see as his role to begin the second half of the season? How does he get involved with this thing?
Well, look, there's not an optimal lineup right now that you make that has Walker in it, with all due respect. And I think that the things to remember, a few things. One, he is still 23, so there's still plenty of time there. But it's not like he was not going to cover off the ball as they extended his rehab in AA. You did need to end up bringing him back. You were running up against the clock anyhow. But his role is, I think it's up in the air right now. Like, you can't make a lineup that doesn't have Burleson in it right now. You certainly can't make one that doesn't have Herrera. I think that you'd rather, while there have been some ups and downs inconsistency-wise with Nootbaar, I still think that you'd rather have Newt in there. Now, maybe against a left-handed pitcher, the story changes a little bit. But right now, maybe that ends up being the role, is kind of that platoon against lefties. He's not murdering them either, necessarily. So you're going to try to piece in some playing time for him. The worst thing that he can do is just sit there all the time. But right now, when you're trying to play some winning baseball, you're trying to get this second half on the go. I think that playing time right now at bats for Jordan Walker are going to have to be earned. I mean, how have you guys looked at this situation?
Well, the conversation, BT, has this season been all about runway, right? Figuring out what these guys were. And I guess that's the biggest question for Jordan Walker is, should the Cardinals exit this season, whether it's with the playoffs or without the playoffs, should they be able to exit this season without a definitive answer of Jordan Walker is a everyday outfielder for us going into next season?
And BT, to answer your question directly, I'm like, how I feel about it, I'm with you. You can't put him into the lineup right now and say that this is our best lineup. And I'm not saying that as a shot against the wall for Walker. It's just the reality.
But I also feel like I don't have answers on him if, like, they go into next season and say, like, we still need to figure out what he is.
I have answers on where he's at right now. I don't know what he's going to be still, would be the way that I would answer it, BT.
Yeah, for both of you guys, like, I don't think that there's a perfect answer for this organizationally at all, like, really, because I understand the runway and you want to know what you have in Jordan Walker. With that being said, I'd also like to know what I have in Alec Burleson, who's actually hitting the ball consistently. I'd like to know what I have in Lars Nootbaar. I still don't know what Lars Nootbaar is personally. I feel like there have been too many variations, but he's shown you more upside than you've seen out of Walk to this point. And by the way, he probably should. He's 4 years older than him. So you're going to see a little bit more consistency there. But the problem is, if you figure out something about, maybe the problem is you have too many guys that you don't know exactly what they are yet, to give them all that quote unquote runway. You got a lot of guys that you would like to play, but you know what? I don't see anything wrong with having a team, and I say this every spring training because the hope is you have some really hard decisions to make where things have to be earned and things aren't just given. It's like, well, here you go, first round, we'll figure it out. Like, no, like, go take it away. Show that you're making, and this isn't just a Walker conversation, this is all young players. Show that you're making tangible changes to whether it be your approach or your swing decisions or your swing itself, and realize that, you know, what the opposition is doing to you and adjust accordingly. And I feel like when guys end up doing that, they see more reps. That's exactly what Alec Burleson has been able to do. Burley is getting pitched away a lot. Guess what he does? He hits the ball the other way and does so with authority. And then all of a sudden they try to come in or they try to throw one at his neck and then he whacks one out of the ballpark. He can do stuff like that. Like, you have to be able to adjust at this level, but I also know that at 23 years old, it ain't easy to do. Like you still think that you've got things figured out and you're still trying to work through it. So there's not a perfect answer. But if you continue to figure out ways to win ball games, and there is not just one special way the Cardinals are winning games. Like, it's like, oh, we rely on our offense. Not necessarily. We rely on our pitching. Not really. Defense, yes. Base running, yes. The way that they've utilized their bullpen, impressive. But, like, if you keep piecing ways to win games, I think that people understand that you're going to move some pieces in and out, and you might have some uncertainties year to year.
Brad Thompson's our guest here on 101 ESPN. You can see him on the call for Fanduel Sports Midwest throughout the season, Cardinals analyst over there. And, of course, he joins us regularly here on 101 ESPN as well. BT, the Cardinals have gone defense up the middle. Pages behind the plate, Mason Wynn at shortstop, Victor Scott the second in center field, and they've all been very good defensively. And they've all been below average offensively. That's not a surprise for Pontes. That's not a surprise for Victor Scott. I do want to ask you, though, about Mason Wynn and how you have evaluated his first half of the season. It's been okay offensively. It hasn't been bad. It's right around league average. But how did you view who Mason Wynn was as a hitter in the first half?
I think that actually the way that you worded that is a really interesting thing, because I think the answer to what Mason Wynn is going to be falls into that. I think Mason Wynn needs to figure out what he is as a hitter. Like, he's still trying to figure that out, because right now, just watching his at-bats, and Mason's got so much upside. This dude is a premium defender, as we know. He's already shown that his bat can play at this level, but ups and downs, right? I think that there are times when I watch him where he thinks he's Bobby Witt Jr., and he thinks that he can just drive the ball to the ballpark in any count, any pitch, and he swings accordingly. And he does not, at this point, in my opinion, have the skill set to do that all the time. I think that he is at his best when he's using the whole field. How are teams pitching him? They're pitching him away, right, for the most part. Then you see that back leg kick out on him because he's trying to pull different pitches. If he could just be patient, boy, it's easy to say, it's hard to do. But if he can be patient, drive the ball the other way, same conversation we're having with Walk, but a little bit different swing. He can cover a lot more than Walk can right now with his swing. I feel like you're going to see more consistency out of him. It's just realizing what the opposition is trying to do to you and then being able to adjust accordingly. But look, I think that he has got so much upside when you look at his game. It's just about mentally dialing it in every single day and realizing the opposition is trying to get you out a certain way. How are you going to adjust? And it's hard when you have a lot of guys that are kind of going through these major league adjustments at the same time. And, you try to lean on somebody, but you're leaning on guys that are kind of going through some of the same things as you are. They're in an interesting case during this transition period, this team is.
BT, it's no surprise for anybody that, a lot of the Cardinals guys were going through it leading up to that All-Star break. For somebody that's experienced it, big picture, how beneficial can these 4 days off be for a lot of those guys?
And for a ton of them, physically, first of all, you had some guys that were going through it, banged up. Nato had been banged up. Newt had to go to the IL, obviously. Gorman had the back issue. Your pitchers are barking. Like, everybody is just beat up at this point physically. But mentally, sometimes you just need a break. Baseball season is a long season. It's a great game, and everybody knows that, and you're so blessed to be able to play it. But you got, 162 games in 187 days, I believe. Like, it gets on you fast. So when you can build in a little mental and physical rest, it's huge. And then you're able to reset and go right back to business, because as we all know, the story of 2025 may be played out here in the next 2 weeks before the deadline of what trajectory this team is going to go. And I don't think that there's a scenario in which we look at the Cardinals and they're going full-blown buy mode. I don't see a situation where that happens. But you could see them sell off more pieces if you fall out of things. So mentally, that's where you have to be so dialed in right now.
Brad Thompson is Cardinals analyst for Fanduel Sports Midwest. You hear him regularly right here on 101 ESPN. BT, sorry about the technical stuff, man. We appreciate the time as always, though.
Guys, I'll be totally honest. I'm sure the technical issues were all on my side. So thank you guys for dealing with me. And in full disclosure, when you texted me initially, I was out spraying for bugs in the yard. Totally forgot we were doing this at 1 o'clock.
My hero.
What are you going to do?
Hey,
what are you going to do?
You got to protect the family. That's the most important thing, BT. Protect the family from bugs.
Oh, good call on that. And I don't think my bug spray, my home defense, is going to cover this one, Alex, but did find a huge snake skin in my garage. Don't like that one bit.
Yeah, you got to sell the house and move. That's the snake's house now.
Alex, do you do snakes?
No, no, I don't do snakes. There's a few things I don't do. It's snakes and it's squirrels.
Birds, too.
Oh, yeah, I don't do birds.
Clarify on the verbiage there.
No.
What's that?
No. You heard it. We've got the knuckles and the snakes here on BK and Ferrario. BT, be good, man.
Name of the show.
No snakes, no squirrels. Got it, Ferrario. See you guys.
It's Brad Thompson joining us here on BK and Ferrario.
Who would be Knuckles and who would be Snakes if we did that name of the show?
I mean, let's be honest. Given my personality, my persona, I'm Snakes.
Yeah, you are so not Knuckles.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. You're a snake in your personality and the look.
Yeah, I feel like that's... Do you agree with that, Grant?
Yeah, I'd say it's hard not to. I was going to try to argue against it for the sake of the conveation.
No, it's very obvious. He's Snake.
I can be self-aware.
Yeah. No, I don't think you can.
Be a jackass, but at least I've got some
It makes sense why you've defended Mo a lot today, I guess.
Yeah, man, there is some moments where I'm looking myself in the mirror as I'm trying to defend John Mozeliak and his smugness and
you're like,
talking down to people and always being right.
Man, that's the trio right there. It's always a BK.
Yep. So I'll talk to my therapist about that over the weekend. Coming up in 15 minutes, Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie. He joins us each Friday on behalf of Macadoodles. But next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You give us 4 different options. We'll tell you which one's got to go here on BK and Ferrario.
This is BK and Ferrario. Time now for One's Gotta Go. We offer up the talking points, and you get to pick which one's gotta go on 101 ESPN.
Count that big bang.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for One's Gotta Go. You guys give us 4 different options. We'll tell you which one's gotta go. In less than 10 minutes, we'll be joined by Mike McKenna, the former NHL goalie. He's joining us while he is on a family vacation to New York.
Oh,
Alex,
it's dedication.
That is how committed Mike McKenna is to bringing you the latest and greatest information, not only in the world of hockey, but also in the world of Macadoodle. So we'll do that with Mike McKenna coming up here in a little less than 10 minutes here on BK and Ferrario. Start out with this Cardinals related. One's gotta go. Cardinals Veteran Edition. Nolan Arenado, Wilson Contreras, Sonny Gray, or Brendan Donovan. This one's pretty easy for me. It's Nolan Arenado.
It's Nolan Arenado. Okay. I think it's the best for the team. I think it's best for the player. And frankly, it's best for the roster.
One's gotta go. Young Player Edition on the Cardinals.
Okay.
Mason Wynn, Ivan Herrera, Victor Scott II, or Alec Burleson. Wynn, Herrera, Scott, or Burley.
Okay, I'd get rid of Scott. And I don't like doing that, but I think all of the other ones are more crucial for the offense. So, yeah, I would go Victor Scott.
You know who has a higher on-base percentage between Victor Scott and Mason Wynn this year?
Victor Scott.
Yep. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Lower OPS because he doesn't have the same pop, but
he doesn't do what BT was talking about to where he tries to get I feel like Victor Scott knows who he is more than what Mason Wynn knows who he is, which makes a lot of sense. But I think there's a better upside for Mason Wynn than Victor Scott in terms of offense. So that's why I would keep Mason Wynn.
I hear you.
Unless you want to put Victor Scott at the leadoff spot. I've heard other people around the area say that's a good idea.
No, it's not. Sorry, that was the tone thing.
Oh, no, I had the same thought. I just wanted you to say it. So
yeah, I know. I would probably go Scott as well here. I've kind of been workshopping this, Alex, in my own head. I have always written off the idea that the Cardinals, like, hey, Mason Wynn's your shortstop. He's going to be that for the next decade. I don't know. If there's a surprise move in the offseason, I could see there being a scenario where Mason Wynn is the surprise. Where, hey, they view J.J. Weatherholt and Brendan Donovan as their middle infield for the next 5 years. And Weatherholt is not actually moving off of shortstop. Instead, he is your future at the shortstop position. I could see a scenario where maybe that ends up being the case.
I'd be more likely to put a package together of a Nootbaar, Gorman, or a Walker to get what I need more than Mason Wynn.
I agree. I don't think that stuff has the same value as Mason Wynn. None of what you just said. Mason Wynn has probably as much value as any player currently on the roster.
And even with his struggles as of late?
Yes. Gold Glove caliber shortstop with offensive upside still at this point in his career that another team could bet on. That has huge value. The likes of which the Cardinals really have not traded in I don't even know how long. So you'd be giving up on a lot, but you'd also be potentially getting a lot in return if you made that.
It would be a bold move that the Cardinals might need to do if they want to take a change for their organization's future.
All right, you give us 4 options. We'll tell you which one's got to go. Alex, beef, pork, chicken, or seafood? Which one's got to go?
Oh, seafood.
Really?
Yeah,
pork for me.
Yeah, there's certain porks that I do like. Seafood, I think it's only like a couple of options, and then I'm pretty much out on it beyond it. So I would do seafood.
I would go pork for sure. All right, one's got to go. Partying edition. Going to a bar, going to a club, or renting a hall? What is that? Renting a hall.
Like a wedding hall?
Oh, like a reception?
Like a reception area?
Okay.
Bar, club, hall. I get rid of the bar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You would go to a club?
No, yeah, you're right. Club would. I'm trying to decide what would be nastier at a party, a club or a bar. Both are pretty filthy.
You're gonna dance? Like a club is typically like a dancing.
Yeah, but I can find a seat at a club, and at least it's air conditioned. And
as opposed to a bar?
Yeah.
Bars aren't air conditioned?
No, they are. I don't know why I said that. I'm just trying to decide. Here's the thing. I'm trying to decide what's
When
filthier.
was the last time you went to a club? Genuinely asking.
Oh.
Like Q? Did you go to Q when you were at
I don't
Lindenwood?
even know what Q is.
Quintessential on Main Street?
Oh, yeah, probably. And I probably left like 15 minutes in. It was loud and crowded.
I can't imagine you've been to a club in the last decade.
I went to a club for my bachelor party.
A club?
Different type of club.
Oh, well, yeah.
Still a club,
Gentlemen's
though.
club?
Still a club.
There is dancing going on. You weren't participating in it.
No, I was
would
not.
imagine.
I was
And
not.
Maybe you were.
I did.
I did this. You know what? I made an assumption there. That's unfair.
I did the same thing at that club that I would do at any other club. Go find a spot to sit and just get a drink and just sit there and don't talk to anybody. So
I can see Alex just making it rain in the corner.
Yeah, that's me. That's me. I'm sitting there throwing wads of dollar bills.
Cranberry juice?
Absolutely not. I'm the dude sitting in the back being like, why am I here right now? So yeah, probably the club would go. Honestly, I hate both of them.
What is your answer to this, Grant? Club? Grant's
like doing 7 things right now.
I wasn't listening. Club, bar, or renting a hall for a party? What would be yours?
Not a big fan of renting a hall, but I'm also not a big fan of clubs.
Okay.
I have to be in a mood to go to clubs. Like, I have to be about 7 or 8 drinks in to go to a club.
You don't start there. You start elsewhere. And
at that point, I'm ready to go to bed.
Right. Yeah. Most of the time, that's the case for me, too. So I'd probably go out with the club here.
We had, in Columbia, there were a few different options, like dancing bars, dancing clubs, whatever you want to call them. And not that kind, Alex, that we would go to. But just like you said, we would start at one place, get yourself nice and liquored up, and then end up on.
Yeah, I don't see any upside to a club. I'm married.
Not at this point in your life.
Yeah. Even back then, it felt like I'm not going to find what I need at a club.
Somebody on the text line said we should have a BK and Ferrario Gentlemen's Club trip. That would be, I don't think insurance would pay for that for us.
Also, I don't have any interest in going to those anymore.
Good YouTube content.
I don't know. That's allowed over there these days.
Yeah.
With Alex and
T-ball
Grant
might be
on
entertaining.
BK. Coming up next, Mike McKenna joins us live from his vacation in New York here on BK and Ferrario.
Grant Francis here with a SportsCenter update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals are back after the All-Star break tonight. They're in Arizona to start a 3-game series with the Diamondbacks, who they swept back in May. It'll be an 8:40 first pitch tonight from Arizona, and it'll be Andre Palante getting the start for the Cardinals. I'm Grant Francis. The SportsCenter update's been driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
How do you like me now?
Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Darden Prairie.
Along. This comes from ESPN.com. Don Van Natta. If you aren't familiar with this story, the NFLPA is going through a lot of stuff right now. Their boss was basically run out of town over the last week or so after some investigative reporting by both Pablo Torre and Don Van Natta. Former NFLPA leader Lloyd Howell Jr. resigned after an outside investigation hired by the union received documents this week showing he charged the union for 2 visits to strip clubs, including a $700 car service that took him from the airport to one of those clubs in Miami. Had another visit in Atlanta in which there were more than $2,500 in charges that included cash withdrawals ranging from $200 to $500 at an ATM. They included 2 quote-unquote VIP rooms for him. Oh. This dude was charging thousands of dollars to the NFLPA's card while in charge of the NFLPA. There's a few different quotes in this story from labor lawyers that are basically like, yeah, that is going to get the attention of, government employees that are looking at how you're spending your money. Not good. NFLPA in a rough spot right now. We talked a little bit about the CBA with our guy Mike McKenna last week when he joined us here on BK and Ferrario. He's a former NHL goalie. He joins us each and every week here on BK and Ferrario on the Callier and Thompson hotline. He's joining us right now live from his vacation in New York. Mike, how you doing today, man?
I'm great with that transition. I haven't done a lot of union stuff in the past, but I wonder if they smudged his Puma. Remember that Chris Rock song that there was no sex in the champagne room? That's all I could think of, and that's what came to mind when I heard the NFLPA leader. You gotta look at what card you're using, man. That's a tough go, man. Like,
the fact that he was doing this in multiple cities, Mike, shows I think he knew which card he was using, and he was doing it on purpose.
And you're paid so well as the head of a union. Like, even
$3.6 million last year, Mike.
How do you spend what? I actually think the totals he racked up are kind of embarrassing in that case. Then it could have been higher, but I don't know. I'm just what a deal. I tell you what, though, I don't mean to pound on everybody in St. Louis right now, but it's about 70-something degrees in Lake George, New York right now in the Adirondack.
It was 70 degrees in St. Louis at about like 3 a.m., Mike. And that's even pushing it.
Listen, man, this is short-lived, but you give me a day or two, I'm going to hop in this glacial lake that's about 65 degrees, and I'm going to think twice. But, yeah, it's nice to be up here, and it's a good hockey town, though. I mean, some people, if you've ever been a little bit north of Albany. We're 20 minutes north of Saratoga, where the famous horse race track is. And the Adirondack Red Wings years ago were a big team in the American Hockey League. There's still an ECHL team here. So lots of hockey up here in upstate New York in a beautiful setting.
Yeah, you're close to the Buffalo fans. So you're going to go do some investigative reporting for us, Mike, and find out if the Blues are going to trade for Bo Byram?
Well, we passed him on the way. My brother-in-law is coming into town tonight, and he lives in Buff. So I might have some late-breaking news for you. I don't know. He might have been hanging at Anchor Bar the last couple of days. He'll be able to give us a scoop on it.
They need inside information on that one, Mike, because we all know the Buffalo Sabres don't just sit there and do things smartly. They make poor decisions most times than not.
They have said, though, publicly, they're not looking for futures, and if they were looking for futures, it would probably be a draft pick. And the draft, Mike, there was news the other day that it is going to remain decentralized. So you're not going to have everybody going out to the draft in the future. This was voted upon by the general managers. You mentioned to us in a text message before the show today, you've got some thoughts on this. What do you think of the draft maintaining what it was this year?
Yeah, there's a couple ways to approach this. I mean, the NHL usually has a chance to only have so many splashes throughout the year where they can get a little bit of publicity that's not in season. It's just the nature of any sporting league, but especially the NHL that's still, I mean, in a lot of the areas of the U.S., it's still a niche sport. So from that standpoint, I think it's a missed opportunity, but I also think it makes all the sense in the world for the teams. There's just no reason to fly half of your staff there, spend all that money to be on the floor, to get distracted when you could do all these things in the comfort of your own war room back at your offices, have everything at your disposal, at your fingertips, not have to do setup, tear down. So from the team standpoint, yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. And I do understand, you've got your top prospects there, but to meet somebody virtually, I just think about when I was drafted in 2002, and there goes a Porsche 911 in the background here in Lake George, New York, but I'm drafted in 2002, and you go down to the floor, and there's Wayne Gretzky. And here's other royalty of hockey and people you're meeting that just, it blows your mind. And so the players that are being drafted, they're not getting that experience at the draft, and that disappoints me because even for myself as a sixth-round selection to Nashville, I still got to go to the floor. I still got to walk up and get a jersey and call all my friends from the suite and have some sausage and peppers and catering upstairs, first free meal. And it's tough, and it sucks for the players to not have that anymore. I totally understand why. I think it's probably better the way it is, but those moments are really, really special, and it feels like we're getting less of those for the players.
Well, and I know it shouldn't matter for the general managers that are the ones voting on this because, like you said, the ease of this one. I mean, Doug joked with us during our draft show. He's like, this is great. I get to go home and actually wake up and then come here the next day rather than try and rush out to get home. But, I mean, they got to change the way they deliver it, though, Mike, because, I mean, it just it didn't flow well. And I know it was the first time, but watching these guys stand in a room and stare at general managers in their locker room, it just didn't work for television when you're trying to relay the excitement of that NFL draft or NHL draft.
Right, I totally agree with you. And it's anytime you do something the first time, I mean, come on, something on TV, how often do you knock it out of the park? It doesn't happen. You see this happen anytime any league or a team goes to, let's say, a different cable provider or a different, like IndyCar goes to Fox from NBC or whatever, right? Things in my background. Well, I mean, Fox had a great product, but there was a messy first broadcast. It's what happens with these things. It's normal, but I'm hoping that they can really learn on it. And I've kind of had the idea that it'd be really cool if they did it in a very conversational, casual way, where if somehow they could just have the GM and the player and do it almost really informal kind of sit-down style and just find a way to get them on a common ground and just get a little bit of soundbite or a little bit of content from them that's not just, hey, son, how you doing? You know what I mean? Just make it more personal like that and let people see, more of the players and even the GMs.
We're talking to Mike McKenna for just another couple of minutes here on 101 ESPN, former NHL goalie. He joins us each and every week on behalf of Macadoodles. You can follow him on Twitter at Mike McKenna56. Mike, if this is the team that the Blues are going to head into the upcoming season with, if they're not going to make another move, how do you feel about this collection of talent, kind of from a 10,000-foot view?
I think it's good. I think the Blues are right in the middle. I think they have an absolutely phenomenal coach, and I think that matters. I really believe in Jim Montgomery and what he got out of the team during his tenure last season when he came in. I don't think that's going to go south. But I think that there needs to be strides amongst the players. I think there does need to be at some point during the season, if the Blues do look like they're a team that's going to make the Stanley Cup playoffs again, they will need to make additions. They may have to make subtractions as well. I'd still like to see the roster tweaked a little bit. I'd like to see some dead weight come off the books. Again, I'm not a fan of singling people out, but when you've got players making $2.5 or $3 million that it's not quite justified, you can utilize that money. And you look at a value signing like a Bugstad, who's worth every bit of 1.75. There's more players that you can acquire that are in that ballpark if you do it the right way. So I believe the Blues are honestly better than last year. Last year, I thought they were a stretch as a bubble team. I thought they were probably slightly below that. This year, I think they're firmly mid-pack. It's going to depend on the development. It's going to depend on the prospects. It's also going to depend on what Doug Armstrong does throughout the season. Because, I mean, I don't know, man. Even 9 days ago, Frank Cervelli was still reporting that Kairu's name's still out there as a player that teams are interested in, despite his no trade clause. So, I wouldn't rule anything out before camp, but something drastic like that doesn't seem too likely in my book.
Mike, we appreciate the time as always, man. You join us each and every Friday on behalf of the fine folks over at Macadoodles. What do you guys have going on right now? I know you're in New York, but Macadoodles still has amazing things going on. What do they have for people this weekend?
Well, we got an amazing staff, first and foremost. I tell you, Carrie, our assistant manager, knows just about everything about beer in the world, great in spirits, you name it. She's a huge blues fan, huge part of our team. We got a guy over there named Jonas who can take care of in our cigar shop. We've just built that out quite a bit, by the way, being summer and golf and lake season, all that. If you need cigars, come see us at Macadoodles. We've got a great room over there, nice humidor. Cindy's working over in wine, and she's so good with it. And right now, we've been into the end of July running a buy one, get one for $1 sale where any bottle of equal or lesser value that's got a little yellow tag on it, you could pick one of those up for $1, and some really nice bottles over there, too. So keep your eyes peeled. We've got some events and some cocktail classes coming along, including a tiki class that we're going to be announcing soon, which will be a lot of fun. Like Carrie I just mentioned earlier is going to be leading the charge on that. She's a dedicated tiki aficionado, so I'm looking forward to that one. We've got a wine pairing dinner with some Swiss wine. You can only get this Swiss wine in Missouri through our distributor. We're super happy to bring it in. So lots of exciting things at Macadoodles, and also want to give a quick shout out here at the end. Even though he hasn't played hockey in 2 years and he just announced his retirement, Jaro Halak. 2 years after playing a game, announces his retirement. Way to go.
Yeah, what a career for Jaro Halak, too. One of those guys that doesn't get enough credit, but I mean, finished his career with almost 600 games played and a .915 save percentage. Just didn't get that Stanley Cup.
Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoy yourself on vacation. We'll talk with you again next week.
All right, back to the loo. Everybody be good. I'll see you next week.
See you, Mike. That's Mike McKenna joining us as he does each Friday here on BK and Ferrario. Appreciate the time as always. We'll let the rewind finish this thing up. Coming up next here on BK and Ferrario.
it back with the Daily Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
If you guys missed anything from today's show, boy, it was a good one. A lot of us not talking.
Hallelujah.
Here today, which is a really big win. Randy Flores joined us. Geoff Pontes joined us. He talked about the Cardinals prospects and why he was so excited about the haul that they were able to get. Randy Flores, of course, is the Cardinals assistant general manager. If you missed any of those conversations or the one that we had with Brad Thompson, Mike McKenna, they're all on the podcast page after the show today at 101ESPN.com or the free 101 ESPN app. And those podcasts are all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
The 101 ESPN app is free to download, super easy to use. That is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. All right, Alex, Cardinals back in action this weekend. They are on the road. They're taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks are not a good team by record. However, they have a very good offense, and you have Andre Pontes and Miles Michaelis on the mound. They're going to put the ball in contact. They're probably going to hit it hard. I would imagine a decent number of runs are going to be scored, at least in those two games, by the Arizona Diamondbacks. This is a series where I want to find out what your offense is made of. I want to see what you look like offensively. Jordan Walker back into the mix. We'll see how he fits into things, or if he fits into things on a regular basis. You're going up against 3 right-handed pitchers, so my guess is no. My guess is he will not start a game this weekend against Arizona. But how does Ivan Herrera look? Wilson Contreras, Lars Nootbaar, Nolan Arenado, these guys were banged up going into the break. Lars is still on the IL. What does the outfield mix look like, and how does this offense produce against a very mediocre and at times bad pitching staff by Arizona? That to me is the biggest thing that I'm going to be honing in on.
Yeah, it should be. And I think people are going to be combing through the rest these next 13 games with a fine-tooth comb to decide if you're a playoff team that's worth investing in, or if you're a team that's probably going to be a seller. Like, the offense is the storyline in this one because the pitching hasn't been great for Arizona, but the explanation over the last couple of weeks of their struggles has been the injuries, but also the lack of rest. And now you've had the rest, you've had the ability to let your body heal. You should come out of the gate swinging in this one. It feels like you have to win 2 of 3 in this series against Arizona for how unsuccessful their pitching has been in Arizona, but also how bad pitching matchup you have in terms of Palante and Michaelis going into this one. So offense is the storyline, but it's also you need to win the series.
Yeah, you do. I think a lot of this is just about, like, where are you at once we get to July 31st? So I'm not going to go into individual series saying you got to win this, you got to win that. I'm just, July 31st, you've got to be in the playoffs. However you get there, I don't really care. But that to me is ultimately how I'm going to be evaluating these next 13 games is how your record compares to those that you're competing against. San Diego, you got a 4-game set directly head-to-head against them. So even if you won 1 out of 3 against Arizona, you sweep the series against San Diego. To me, it's a, like, pass-fail. What does it look like when we get to July 31st, and where are you at? I just want to evaluate the individual aspects of this team. Are they playing well before we get there?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I think you need a little bit of a safety blanket because I think it's unrealistic to think of a sweep against the Padres. Winning 3 of 4 seems outlandish. Like, it feels like it could be a split type of series, which isn't a bad thing. But if you lose to the Diamondbacks or you don't have success against the Rockies, I don't care if you're sitting in a wild card spot if the Padres struggle. If you can't beat those teams and then you split against San Diego, it's going to be hard for me to look at the team. I feel like I know where this team is at individually. What I don't know is kind of what your team could look like at the deadline in terms of where you're at.
I think Walker's going to be a big story this weekend. He's officially up with the big league club. If you missed the news earlier today, the Cardinals have recalled Jordan Walker. They have sent Thomas Sajaci down to AAA. So those are the moves, the corresponding moves for them. I'm fascinated to see it, man. I don't know how he fits into the mix. I would say against right-handed pitchers that you're going up this weekend, he probably doesn't. And then it becomes a question on Monday when we come in, if that ends up being the case, what does this mean for him? Yeah. What is his runway? Is it gone now? Is he going to be a guy that we talk about as we get closer to July 31st? For as much as these questions have been answered about the Cardinals this year, it has also presented a number of new questions for us and how those are going to be answered. So we'll certainly have plenty more time to talk about that over the coming days and weeks. Again, if you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app. You can also see a brand new edition of the Last Minute Blues podcast. That is available for you at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. The guys discussed the Blues broadcast situation, kind of gave 10,000-foot view on the Blues offseason, where they're at. So again, you can find that over on YouTube, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Grant Francis did a fantastic job filling in this week for T-Bone, as did Bradford Bruns, who was in again today for the Fast Lane. For Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. We will talk to you guys on Monday at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane is coming up next here on BK on 101 ESPN.